Welcome to our Atascadero City Council meeting called to order. And I will ask Councilmember Bourbeau to lead us in a pledge to the flag.
Stand and join me in saluting.
Thank you. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Bourbeau.
Here.
Councilmember Daris.
Here.
Councilmember Funk.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Newsom is absent. Mayor Moreno.
Here. Thank you. Well, if you are attending here in person or you're listening this evening, we welcome you. If you would like to speak by phone for any of our items tonight, whether during community forum or during public comment on one of the items, you can dial 805-538-2888. And when you call in, please let us know which item you are wishing to speak on. Once again, that number is 805-538-2888. Can I get a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved. I'll second.
A motion by Councilmember Funk, a second by Councilmember Bourbeau, and we will waive the reading in full of all ordinances appearing on this agenda. And the titles of the ordinances will be read aloud by the city clerk at the first reading after the motion and before the city council votes. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Bourbeau.
Yes.
Councilmember Funk.
Yes.
Councilmember Daris.
Yes.
Mayor Moreno.
Yes, ma'am.
Motion passes.
Thank you. Now I will ask our city attorney, Mr. Brian Pierrick, if we have any reportable item from our closed session at our last city council meeting.
We do not.
Thank you, Mr. Pierrick. And now we have a presentation proclaiming the last week of April as World War II Commemoration Week. And I believe we have Lieutenant Colonel Eric Brunn in our wonderful. Oh. I was just corrected on how to pronounce your name. Nice to see you, sir. I will go ahead and read the proclamation and then we'd love to hear from you. This proclamation, the last week of April is World War II Commemoration Week. Whereas in the months after the attack on Pearl Harbor on December 7th, 1941, the advent of World War II dramatically and irrevocably transformed all of the communities of San Luis Obispo County and their citizens, including those of Atascadero, as the entire nation mobilized for war. And whereas Camp San Luis Obispo was occupied by the Army in 1940 and served as a training base for 7 combat divisions deployed both to Europe and the Pacific Theater, as well as 5,000 Marines. At its peak, the combined ranks of the military mobilizing for war in San Luis Obispo County amounted to 22,000 soldiers. And whereas Camp Roberts, just to our north, began its mission in March 1941, throughout World War II, Camp Roberts was the largest U.S. Army basic training installation in the nation. By 1944, this base reached its peak population of 45,000 troops, with thousands of these soldiers quartered in huge tents, with a 750-bed hospital, churches, warehouses, PXs, and other support facilities. And whereas the Faces of Freedom Memorial in Atascadero provides a permanent monument to the memory of those who perished in World War II, as well as each of the other conflicts in which the nation has been engaged since our city's founding. This memorial lists the names of the 137 Atascadero residents who gave the last full measure of devotion during World War II, with the following statement engraved above their names, quote, World War II was fought on 5 continents and resulted in about 60 million military and civilian dead, the largest loss of life from war in human history, close quote. The memorial serves our entire county as the site of moving patriotic occasions throughout the year, especially on Memorial Day. And whereas it is appropriate that the residents of the Central Coast set aside a week in April 2022 to reflect upon that time only 80 years ago, where our community and our nation came together as one people to fight a common enemy of fascism and imperialism, a time when we entered a war that ended not only with military victory, but with the establishment of institutions that fostered a peaceful world order committed to human rights, democracy, and respect for national sovereignty and the common aspirations of humanity. Now, therefore, on behalf of the City Council of the City of Atascadero, I hereby proclaim the last week of April as World War II Commemoration Week, joining with the South County Historical Society and the History Center of San Luis Obispo County in marking this week to help educate our citizens about the brave men and women who endured enormous sacrifices of their property, their liberty, and in many cases, their lives to achieve victory in World War II and kindle the hopes for a lasting peace in the 8 decades since. Lieutenant Colonel.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just as your faces of freedom embrace the diversity of our community, I was a resident here not too many years ago. We embrace certain stories that are less well known, like the first Filipino battalion that activated at Camp San Luis Obispo in April of 1942. The 54th Coast Artillery, a Black Coast Artillery unit that served on our beaches in Morro Bay, Shell Beach, and Avila in 1942 to 1944. And of course, the Nisei of the 442 Regimental Combat Team and the Military Intelligence Service that served our nation so valiantly, many of whom came from our very coastline. This week is a great opportunity. I encourage the residents to embrace the memory of these sacrifices and participate in our commemorations.
Thank you very much. If you want to come forward, we'll present you with this and take a quick photo. So we understand there are possibly some events that are occurring in.
Yes.
Yes.
During that week, beginning on the find my notes. Beginning on the 24th, we have a series of events virtually every day from there until the 1st. There is an event or more a day. The History Center website has a full and correct listing of times and places. But to begin with, we have a history walk of downtown San Luis Obispo on the 24th with Dr. Joe Morris. Then the events start jumping around the county. In no specific order, I am delivering a presentation on the 54th Coast Artillery in Pismo. Jim Gregory, the South County historian, has 2 events occurring in the IOF Hall in Arroyo Grande. We have in Morro Bay, we have a double event. We have the author of a recent book on the sinking of the SS Montebello and a professor from Cal Poly who specializes in public history, who will be giving a talk about how we as historians communicate our stories and try to help tell your stories and your family stories into the future. We also have something else. And we have another walk, which is of kind of increasing interest to me in the southern part of San Luis Obispo is Japantown. And if you're driving south on Higuera Street at South Street, as you look to your left, you have a donut shop, and to your front right, you've got a Jiffy Lube and a Subway sandwich place to your right. Immediately behind that was Eto Street, and Eto Street was Japantown in 1940. And Japantown transformed during the war into Brook Street, which became the Harlem of San Luis Obispo in the 40s. So that nexus occurred in April when the Japanese were removed and the Black 54th came to town, and the wives and children following the soldiers came and occupied that very same space. So that's part of the research we're doing right now, is exploring that piece of our lost history.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you for all that you and others are doing to tell that story and bring that history alive for all of us right now.
You're welcome. Thank you so much.
Thank you. All right, so now we are on to our consent calendar, and the consent calendar contains items that are considered to be routine and non-controversial by city staff and can be approved in one motion unless there's a member of our council or a member of the public wishing to pull an item. So I will look to my council members to see if there's anyone wishing to pull an item. I'm seeing none. If you're on the webinar and you wish to pull an item, please go ahead and raise your hand. Or if you are here in our studio audience, go ahead and come forward or maybe raise your hand. I am seeing none. All right, I'll bring it back to council and ask for a motion.
Move to approve.
I'll second.
Motion by Councilmember Darris, second by Councilmember Funk. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Darris,
Yes.
Councilmember Funk. Yes. Councilmember Borbo,
Yes.
Mayor Moreno.
Yes, ma'am.
Motion passes.
Thank you. Now we're on to updates from our city manager, Ms. Rickard.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. As usual, I have a lot of events and happenings going on here in Atascadero. And we will start with the Waste Management Residential Waste Drop-Off Week. So next week, April 16th through 23rd, so from this Saturday through the following Saturday, Waste Management will be offering free drop-off for Atascadero customers from 7:30 to 3 p.m. at Chicago Grade Landfill. This event makes it easy for residents to dispose of extra or large item residential waste at no cost. Again, no cost. Non-acceptable items are debris generated from commercial construction and commercial landscaping, but residential is accepted. The event is open to Atascadero Waste Management customers, and a voucher is required. So before you go to the dump, you do need to have your voucher. Atascadero residents can get a voucher by calling it Waste Management or by stopping by their office on Pueblo Avenue. In addition to the waste drop-off at Chicago Grade with the voucher for free, April 18th through 22nd, paper shredding will be available at their customer service center located at 8740 Pueblo Avenue from 8:30 to 4:30 p.m. If you have any questions about the waste drop-off week, call Waste Management at 805-466-3636. It's a great time to do a little spring cleaning and get everything out to the dump, to the landfill. We have the spring concert series. So our new spring concert series in Sunken Gardens is in full bloom with 2 more concerts planned for this coming Saturday and again next Saturday. This weekend from 4 to 6 p.m. Please join us for Back Bay Betty, offering well-known covers of rock, blues, soul, and jazz. We'll also have 2 bounce houses and food available for purchase from Taqueria Down Jose, Paradise Shaved Ice, which I know is a favorite of Rachel's kids, and Zen Dog. So always great having them vendors here. And if you like, you can bring your own beverage from one of our many surrounding wine bars or breweries. So Wild Fields is just across the bridge, Tent Cities across the street, Dead Oak, they're all right there. So please, you can bring a lawn chair, sit and enjoy great music. Concerts are free to attend. Just bring yourself and your low back chair. And we want to thank our sponsors for the spring concert series. The sponsors are Modica Financial and Tax, Rigger and Alice Jones, Waste Management, Union and Vine Restaurant at Spring Hill Suites, Bubble Fun 101, Rolson Sound, and All Signs and Graphics. So please patronize our sponsor. They do a lot to support our community and are providing these concerts to you. Without them, we couldn't have them. We have another event coming up, our Spring Festival and Party for the Planet at the Zoo. So if you're looking for a great family activity during spring break, come check out all the fun at the Charles Paddock Zoo. Our Spring Festival is kicked off with a variety of fun things to see and do, including crafts, adorable baby chicks, other new zoo babies. There was a great article in the Tribune and some of the press on some of our zoo babies. We appreciate that. Along with scheduled animal feedings, all happening through April 24th. And on Saturday, April 23rd, from 10 a.m. till 3 p.m., Party for the Planet, an Earth Day celebration is back. Party for the Planet is a family event that focuses on natural resource conservation and the protection of global and local animals and plants. It's a fun day for everyone with interactive adventures and hands-on activities, entertaining and educational exhibits, plus food for purchase from Zen Dog and I'm going to have a problem with this. What? Huatulco Tacos? Hey, you got me at tacos. They'll be there. We're great. And a special thank you to our sponsors who include Atascadero Mutual Water Company, Solar Ponics, Waste Management, and Idler's Home. The last item I want to let you know about is Brew at the Zoo, another favorite event. So Brew at the Zoo will be held on Saturday, April 30th from 5:30 to 9 p.m. This event will have live music, great games, dance contest, a variety of craft breweries, cideries, wineries, and a chance to visit all of our animals at the zoo. Tickets are on sale now for $40 per person and can be purchased at www.my805tix.com. Or you can always go to visitatascadero.com. And then obviously Brew at the Zoo has a variety of breweries, the breweries, cideries, and wineries. All of those tastings are included for the price of your ticket, in addition to all the music and games and fun things that they have going on in admission to the zoo, of course. So this will be the first time we'll be able to use our new Zoo Garden Event Center for Brew at the Zoo in person. So it should be plans to be an exciting event. With that, I'd be happy to answer any questions council may have.
Thank you. So much good things going on here in Atascadero. Any questions? Not seeing any. Thank you very much, Ms. City Manager. All right, we are on to community forum, and this is the portion of our meeting that is reserved for persons wishing to address the council on a topic over which we have jurisdiction, but that is not on our agenda this evening. Speakers are limited to 3 minutes, and the total time we have available is 30. We have the timer turned on for your assistance in timing, and we will ask that you would just state your name for the record when you come forward. And with that, community forum is open. Welcome to our speaker. And if you're on the webinar, go ahead and raise your hand.
Okay, well, Debbie Arnold, you're representative on the County Board of Supervisors, and it's really nice to be here with you tonight. And I never get tired of coming into this building. I love it. So anyway, I thought I would just join you this evening to share my concern regarding the confusion that I am seeing with my constituents, many of whom are your constituents as well, that's really been caused by the redistricting process. So I wanted to come in and share this evening. I must get these comments 5, 6, 7, sometimes more times a day where constituents say, well, enjoy your retirement, or it's nice to know you, kind of a thing. And I just wanted to come in and share. There is a lot of confusion surrounding the redistricting because it's a confusing thing. But I will continue to represent the city of Atascadero on the Board of Supervisors until January 1st, approximately January 1st of 2025. So I will continue to represent the district I was elected in, which would be, I guess we can now call it the old District 5, that goes from Round Squirrel Hall in the north and includes parts of San Luis Obispo in the south until my term is up, which I shared with you was January. Now, that being said, the voters will have a little confusion when they receive their ballots in this next election or starting in June and on to November, because the lines have been moved. District 2 has been moved. We know that the coast has not seen a lot of growth where inland we have in this county. So the line has been moved on District 2, moved to the east and moved over to include the entire city of Atascadero. So what's going to happen? I will be the only county supervisor representing the city of Atascadero until next January. But at that point, you'll have 2 supervisors. So lucky you guys. You'll have 2 people representing for 2 years, and then everything kind of sorts out, and it will go back to you'll have 1 county supervisor, but you will be in District 2. So for a short time there, that will involve 2 districts, and that's, I think, created part of the confusion. Again, I've really enjoyed having such a wonderful relationship with you and all the staff here in Atascadero. And Atascadero and of course the county have had a long-term relationship in providing services to the citizens of the entire county and the citizens of the city of Atascadero, where the county provides a few vital services and then you provide your city services. So I look forward to working working with all of you for the next couple of years. And if any of the constituents out there that are listening to this broadcast have any questions about the redistricting or confusion, you can always call me, Debbie Arnold, your 5th District County Representative, 805-781-4339. And we're happy to share maps. You can find them online or we can help you get one. And thank you for giving me this time.
Thank you very much. Anyone else in the public audience here wishing to speak? And if you are in our webinar, make sure you press, raise your hand, the raise hand button. So I gotta maneuver screens and people in front of me. This is so different than Zoom. Zoom was easy. Next speaker, thank you.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Jeff Oslin, city resident, Atascadero business owner, and I am also a candidate for District 2 supervisor. I really appreciate Supervisor Arnold doing the clarification on who represents our city through 2024. It's very helpful. Thank you very much. So the reason I'm here tonight is I have a suggestion for our city. I noticed that we just did the 5-year celebration of Farmers Market in our downtown, which is fantastic. But I noticed that we're burdening our staff with putting signs up and delineators out for no parking signs for the last 5 years. Just a question that might save money and time with our staff if we were to put permanent signs up on our light poles in the downtown saying that there is no parking between whatever time and whatever time it is for our farmers market. I think that could free up some time with our staff and make it a more permanent venture. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next speaker. Let's see, I'm looking to the webinar. I'm not seeing any hands. If there is anyone in the webinar, I'll go ahead and press the raise hand button. If you're on the phone, *9. And if you are sitting in here, what are you waiting for? No, everyone's just here for the entertainment. Awesome. All right, I'm not seeing anyone else. So I will go ahead and close community forum and bring that back. Mr. Oslin, thanks for the idea. I'm sure staff will take a look at that if they haven't already. And Supervisor Arnold, thank you for the clarification. Many people are confused. And what I just heard from that, I don't know about the rest of you, but that for 2 years, we're going to have 40% representation on the Board of Supervisors. Did you all hear that? Yeah, we're gonna have 2 supervisors. That's 40%. We got 40% of the vote right now for Atascadero. Anyway, I thought that sounded good. But thank you for that. And we thank you for all your service to Atascadero these past 10 years. And we've always been able to rely on you, and we appreciate that very much and know that will be the same going forward. Okay, because community forum is a 30-minute, we have a 30-minute set aside and there's no one else wishing to speak. We will have community forum stay open until 6:50 p.m. And so at this time, the council will move on to our next item. But if anyone would like to speak, go ahead and raise your hand or call 805-538-2888 before the 30-minute time period is ended. And then you'll be recognized to speak at the earliest possible opportunity. Okay, so we are on to public hearings, and this item is actually going to be continued to our next meeting, but because it was published, we want to go ahead and open it up for public comment. So if there's any public comment, and this is on the Centennial Plaza Plan Development Zone Change, which is the East Mall property right here by, I'm trying to remember which way we're facing right now, but you know what I mean, that way. Okay, right over there. Thank you. So if any member of the public would like to speak on that, you could raise your hand. If you're on the webinar, press *9 or go ahead and come to the podium and we will recognize you to speak. I am seeing no one, so we will go ahead and continue this item to the April 26th meeting. And it is a pretty exciting item, so I would recommend you all tune in for that one. We're now on to our management report, and this is approval of the North San Luis Obispo County Broadband Strategic Plan. This is our memorandum of understanding, and I believe our Community Development Director, Mr. Phil Dunsmore, who is with us on Zoom, will be presenting that item.
Wish I was there with you all tonight, but I have some sniffles, so speaking from home today. But Lorelei is going to actually give you a little update on the broadband MOU and some background on that. So thank you.
Thank you. Can you hear me? Okay, so tonight we have with us Paul Sloan, Economic Development Manager for the City of Paso Robles. He is online as well. So we are here tonight to just talk a little bit about a memorandum of understanding between the cities of Paso Robles and Atascadero. We've been collaborating on broadband initiatives for a while and have a great working relationship. We are very excited to spearhead an effort to bring a strategic plan to North County to look at how we can work together as two cities to bring larger dollar amounts in grant funding to Atascadero to help fill in the gaps. Our goal is to create sign a memorandum of understanding that will allow the cities to collaborate together on a project. We would refine a scope of work to send out to requests for proposals. And that would be a project that we would work on together. We would look for a consultant team that would help guide us through that. And really the scope of work there would be to help us understand what our problem that we're trying to solve really is. We talk about broadband a lot, and we know that we don't have enough of it from a lot of our technical difficulties that we experience working from home, remoting into our council meetings and our businesses, our local businesses. So for the sake of our residents and our constituents and our businesses, we'd like to move forward with a project that will allow us to look at the gaps, understand what our data needs are, and come up with a strategy of what our highest and priority projects are between our two communities. And then kind of give us some actions that we can move forward with seeking grant funding for. And we do understand that when cities come together or when regions come together, we have a higher probability of bringing in state funding and federal funding that's coming down the pipeline. Some of it's already released and some of it will be released in the next year, within the next year. So we want to be ready for that. And this strategic plan will allow us to be eligible for some of those funding. And we need to kind of have a plan and tell them exactly what we'd like to do. And this will get us there. So with that, I'd like to just see if you have any questions.
Thank you, Lorelei. And if you could, a lot of times people think, oh, you're doing another study and hiring another consultant, and it can start to sound like dollars going out the door and how is this going to be spent? I think the understanding is that in order to be eligible for some of the big money that is out there for broadband, this is a necessary step to do that. Could you speak to that?
Absolutely. And we aren't just collaborating in our silo of North County. We're working across the entire county and region. We're talking with other cities about what they're doing. We're talking to the county, to SLOCOG, to Santa Barbara County and other areas that are also doing this work, and understanding how we can come together even as a multi-county region to see what funding is eligible for larger regions. We are currently part of the Broadband Consortium of the Pacific Coast. So that includes Ventura, Santa Barbara, and San Luis Obispo counties. And by collaborating with that organization, we have, it's like a listserv of really great people doing really great work on the Central Coast, moving broadband forward. And Ventura has been a really good model for moving things forward. Their entire county has really put a lot of weight behind it, and it's our time for our county to do the same. So for now, our 2 cities are ready to move ahead. We would love it if other cities joined in or brought their data and information to this plan, and together we can hitch our wagons together and just kind of make this a larger effort. So for now, we're moving forward. This will allow us to apply for funding. The larger your region, probably the higher the probability of your funding being awarded is, as we understand it today. Not all of the guidelines are clarified yet for what kind of who is applicable and what kind of projects will be applicable, but by understanding what our needs are and what our priority projects are, we'll be ready for that when it comes down the pipeline. And that should be in the next 3 to 6 months.
Wonderful. Thank you. And thank you for the work that you've been doing on this. And of course, Paul, I'm sure we'll hear from him during public comment. It's been great to collaborate as a North County region. And it's something that our council has been talking about for many years. I mean, this dates back, many years, but it's one of those things where, number one, we weren't quite sure how to get it going. What did you do? And there were sort of people talking in silos about it. And we're sitting here, I remember Rochelle and I meeting with Luke, our IT guy, kind of trying to start understanding things. And then of course, there's the financial aspect of it. And it really wasn't until COVID when it really blew open to everybody the need for broadband, not just as something nice to have, but something that is now really being considered a fourth utility, that it's necessary for kids to be going to school online if need be, for those of us who might work from home and those who are working from home that didn't used to. And so it's really an important piece of infrastructure and things that need to come together. So it's exciting that this is all coming at the same time, and that we now have Lorelei on board to help with that, because capacity is always an issue too. And this council here has prioritized this. And so excited that my colleagues, that we're all moving forward together and that we are banding together with Paso regionally. So thank you. With that, I will see if any of my colleagues have questions. Councilmember Funk.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I have to do the physical equivalent of unmuting myself. Just a couple questions. Will you be exploring the business models that might be possible, at least at this stage, or does that really wait to a later stage?
By business models, you mean?
Well, there are different ways of organizing how services are delivered. Who owns the assets? Are we? Is this something that the city is managing, or a city that is making physical assets available to others to lease, or several other options out there?
Yeah, that's a great question. There's so many things I've learned over the last 5 years of really studying this, but whether it be middle mile to final mile, providing to all the way up to the home connection, that's what this request for proposals will explore. What is the best? What is our need? And what are the priority projects, and how should we go about doing that? We've even talked about, rather than a city, for example, managing an entire broadband network with the limited capacity and adding that fourth utility, as Mayor Moreno said, having a joint powers authority or some sort of like a CSD, I would say, kind of organizing that on our behalf. And maybe that's a county-wide organization. So all cities are coming together and pulling. There's so many options, and those models have been tested in other communities. We've been following that and kind of meeting with other current internet service providers and seeing how they do things in other towns and other communities. So that will be a recommendation as part of this request for proposals process. What's the best thing for Atascadero, Paso Robles, and North County in general?
Great. And on a much less lofty level, I see that the MOU is non-binding. So how does that actually work when you go to issue and receive and consider requests for proposal?
Yeah, that's a good question for legal. I haven't worked with a lot of MOUs, but at this point, we think that we will launch this project if we are, asked to do so by tonight by council, and then we could add detail to that if we needed to. But ultimately, our goal is to create a project and then figure out how we will manage that together and memorialize that. Rochelle, do you have anything to add to that?
Yes, as we go to contract with whoever responds to the RFP, that will come back to council. At that point, we will memorialize how the invoices will be paid, who's paying, who's administering, and all of that. It'll really depend on the proposal on what's going to be the easiest method for that. Right now, we're just trying to document the commitment of Paso Robles and Atascadero to move this forward as quickly as possible. So that will be developed as we go.
Thank you. It's an exciting joint effort.
Any other council questions? Seeing none, I will go ahead and open this up to public comment. Any members of the public wishing to speak, come forward to the podium. If you're on the phone, *9. And if you're in the webinar, go ahead and use that raise hand icon at the bottom of the screen. Welcome.
Thank you, council, once again, and Mayor Moreno. Jeff Oslin, business owner and resident of Atascadero. So was it a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, this body approved funding for Lorelei for economic development for our city. You're to be congratulated for that, because this broadband move is extremely important, especially for North County. And if the spaceport was to become a reality in Paso Robles, or even if it doesn't, by having high-speed internet that is reliable in North County will bring in huge economic development, whether it's for our chamber at Bridgeworks, that we can be bringing in higher startup companies that can rely on internet as well, or these projects that we are doing at Del Rio or anywhere else within the city for us, which brings in very good paying jobs and head of household jobs, which we're very much in need of in this county. So Lorelei is to be congratulated for all her hard work. Thank you.
Thank you. I think we would all agree about Lorelei. All right. Anyone else wishing to speak? And Mr. Sloan, there's no reason you have to, but I do see you're still in the webinar. And if you would like to speak on behalf of Paso, I would love to hear from you. Mr. Sloan.
Good evening, Madam Mayor and council members. I would just like to echo the comments about Lorelei. I presented this project to the City Council of Paso last week, and Lorelei did a much better job tonight than I did. So kudos to you all for hiring her. She's awesome and great to work with. And I would just like to echo the sentiment about the great collaboration between our communities and our mutual goal of embedding, the broadband access for all our residents, as well as the goal of attracting those head of household jobs. But very much looking forward to the collaboration, and I look forward to following the decision of your council this evening. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sloan. Any other members of the public wishing to speak? You can press *9, raise your hand in the webinar, or go ahead and come forward to the podium. Luke, do we have anyone on the phone? All right, I am not seeing anyone else, so I'll go ahead and close public comment and bring it back to the council for any deliberation or a motion.
I'll move approval of staff's recommendation to authorize the mayor to execute the MOU.
I'll second.
Excellent. We have a motion by Councilmember Borbeau, a second by Councilmember Funk. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Borbeau,
Yes.
Councilmember Funk,
Yes.
Councilmember Daris,
Yes.
Mayor Moreno.
Yes, ma'am.
Motion passes.
Yay. Very excited about moving forward. All right. Okay, is anyone who's wanted to speak on public comment at all from community forum? No, okay. I think we're good then. So now we are on to our study session. This is the good stuff. Well, it's all good stuff. This is our study sessions, an update on our council goals and action plan. And I was just talking with our two chiefs here right before the meeting started. So Chief Masterson and Chief Miranda, this is their first time at the microphone at a city council meeting, like in our chambers. Chief Masterson came to us during COVID, so we weren't meeting, and Chief Miranda was promoted to battalion chief during that time and hasn't been to a meeting yet. So yay, kind of exciting to have everyone here. All right, I will turn this over to, I'm assuming it's our city manager. Yes, that's what it says here in yellow.
You are, but we're going to turn it over to the whole team. So the action plan is a very large undertaking. We got together and realized as we were going through all of the actions and as we reached, I think, slide 107, how big of an undertaking it is. So this may take a little bit. I'm gonna just remind everybody a little bit what is our action plan, how we developed our action plan, and then just dive into the actions. This is intended to be a progress update on the action plan that you adopted last June. We're now 9 months into this 2-year plan and just want to give a status update. We are hoping to do this as a study session. So if you have questions as we're going along, if you just raise your hand, we'll take council questions at that time. And then certainly public comments and questions at the end. With that, I'll just jump right in. So as I said, we're going to review progress on the 2021-2023 action plan. The action plan outlines the city goals and details all of the strategic actions. So these aren't, we're a city, we provide police, we provide fire, we provide parks, roads, wastewater, zoo, a lot of day-to-day services. But what is it that we really want to change or move forward or concentrate on in the 2-year budget? That is, or in the 2-year action plan, that's what's in your action plan. And this really drives the budget preparation. We have a lot of things that are ongoing, but this is those other things that we really want to look at and strategically prioritize. And then after we go through the status update on the action plan, we're going to be looking for some direction from the council on performance metrics. As part of the D20 process, it was very important that we make sure that we report back to our constituents on what are we achieving with those D20 funds, how much progress we're making. And so really want to get some council input as we're starting to move forward on these actions and make sure that we are tracking the data that we want and reporting on the data and that we all have consistent understanding of what it is that we want to do. Roadmap to the action plan. The roadmap, actually the action plan starts well before this first thing as we started to talk about a potential sales tax measure. We've been talking about financial constraints of the city for years and years and years. We did a community survey that not only told us whether or not a sales tax was feasible, but really gave us some insight into some of the priorities of the community. There was nothing that was really surprising that came out of that, but it was great to see that statistically valid survey say that, hey, we're on track. We all understand and have a lot of the same priorities. We held a council kickoff session in last January 2021 for a very robust public outreach session, really geared towards those D20 funds. But realistically, it drove a lot of the budget. We then held 9 study sessions, all sorts of different times and dates. We had a lot of different community members participate in those. They were very well received. I think we had almost over 130 individual participants. We had a lot of participants that participated more than once, but 130 different people. And that we gathered all of that data from those study sessions and did a council goal setting session. It was a 2-day session. Again, very active community participation in that. And out of that, and all of the information from the years of input and study sessions and other things, we set 4 council strategic priorities. And then and we defined what those priorities are and what they meant. On March 9th, we reviewed those again at a council meeting, received more public input. Staff then went away and said, what can we do to move those priorities forward? What actions can we take? What are we recommending? And brought back a draft action plan to you in April of 2021. We then held 5 finance committee meetings where we went over the entire budget, including a session or 2 dedicated just to kind of general fund and D20 funds and what we want to do with those. And then finally, last June, we did adopt the budget and the action plan for July 1, 2021 through June 30th, 2023. So a lot public input went into this, a lot of thought. And that's why it's important enough to take the time tonight to go through it. This is just a little bit about what happened at the strategic plan and the goal setting on February 19th and 20th. Took all that input, it categorized it into about 60 different recurring themes, and then broke that into 4 focus areas. The 4 strategic priority areas ended up being economic and community vibrancy, fiscal infrastructure, efficiency, and sustainability, ensuring public safety and providing exceptional city services, quality of life. Those are a lot of words. What do those mean? We're going to talk about all that. So let's hit economic and community vibrancy first. So we defined at the strategic plan, and by we, I mean council, staff, and the public all in workshops together, defined economic and community vibrancy as creating the environment and services to nurture quality and diverse economic, recreational, and community connections that create prosperity and enrich our genuine, authentic community. And how are we going to do that? We're going to break down this section into even further sections. And the first one's recreation and events. And those are some of the actions. So let me start with restart events. As you heard tonight, as I was going through the city manager report, we have certainly restarted events with a vengeance. Last year at this time, we were still in the throes of COVID. It's really nice to start events. And then one of the actions was plan and execute events at the new Zoo Event Center. We've held a number of events at the Zoo Event Center. It's a very nice facility. Have heard back a lot of good things, and we have a lot more events, especially now that some of our social distancing restrictions are gone. So we've had a chamber event there. I think we had a mayor's lunch. We've had a lot of zoo education programs. It'll be used for wine festival, Brew at the zoo, all sorts of events. And so we are moving forward on that action. We were asked to design events around the new plaza. We held an ASB fall carnival there at the plaza. In addition to the ribbon cutting, the ASB fall carnival was a lot of fun. Each of the ASB clubs came and used it as a fundraiser, had different activities at their booths. We had FFA doing a petting zoo, lots of fun activities. We're going to be using that plaza for our first Friday fall concerts. So this fall, we'll be having a number of concerts in October and November there at the plaza, and we'll be continuing to look for other opportunities to do that. In addition, we've had, make sure that wasn't Terry telling me I'm doing something wrong. She does that to me. We have had a lot of people that are renting that for private events too, other events that will be going on there. So that'll be interesting. Hold new recurring events in Centennial Plaza to ensure the space is shared by all in the community. We are trying to actively increase some of the activity in that area. You'll see we're starting to move when we have events, start to move some activities over to that area so that we get more traffic. This is an area that we would like to improve, maybe some small quieter concerts. And certainly as we develop that Centennial Plaza, the planned development that we're going to talk about that's been continued, I think that this will even open up more opportunities. We're going to encourage events on privately owned vacant properties downtown. Phil, do you want to tell us what's going on with some of that?
Absolutely. I think the vacant lots there at Colony Square are really the catalyst for all of Colony Square. And we've really supported some private events that have happened there in collaboration with Wildfields Brewery, which is really the kind of the spark of that whole center. And we're continuing to work with those property owners to allow additional events in that center parcel, especially, and looking for a longer term land use, obviously, in those parcels as well.
We had an action to encourage more events that focus on downtown. Terry has done that with a vengeance. I think our Atascadero Fall Festival was a giant hit. Heard a lot of positive things on that new event. Fireworks always seem to be a favorite. We have the new spring concerts that I've been talking about tonight. Really trying to make sure that we're bringing those people downtown, trying to make sure that we can incorporate as much activity throughout the downtown so that people realize what a gem we have here in Atascadero and the wonderful businesses that we have downtown. We did move some stages on Entrada during the Tamale Festival to try and get people through to those businesses, and really working with the businesses there to make sure that we're being successful and letting people know what a wonderful downtown we do have. The next one we have is our next area of focus was downtown. These were all of the actions for downtown. And by the way, tonight I'm only going through the 1 to 2 year actions. It wasn't enough that we had 100+ actions as part of the 2-year action plan. We also added some things that we want to be working towards for years out from year 2. So these are them for just the 1 to 2 years. So we have pursue funding and complete construction documents for downtown infrastructure enhancement plan. And Nick, I'm going to have you tell us what progress we're making on that.
Sure. There's been a ton of progress going on this project. This is kind of the second phase. We had a lot of, when we were trying to sell the project, or when we did sell the project to the public and got public support with it. This is actually the more exciting part, and the third stage will be construction, but this will be the design portion. Some of the public or some of the council might have seen some of the activity the last couple of weeks on the corridor with soil borings going on. That's a lower left or right picture there. And then also we've been surveying the corridor, and we've also started some conceptual design as well. We're kind of holding back a little bit just due to the $3 million we got from Senator Laird. So we are still waiting on Caltrans, who is waiting on the state to tell them the rules of that. But I think we're getting very close at last check. So we have applied for a couple other grants for that, but have been denied. And so we'll continue to look for those opportunities.
But we do have the $3 million from Senator Laird. We want to thank him once again for that. That is coming. The council also did identify this as a priority project that some of the ARPA funds will allow us to be able to work towards this. So we are getting close on funding, but we do continue to look for grants. You asked us to look at ways to reduce startup costs and assist development of new restaurants. So Phil can tell you a little bit about what we're doing there.
Yes, actually, in a very short time, we will be bringing you some draft incentive ideas for restaurants, which include looking at the development fees, looking at ways to really help the startup costs. That's really been the main impediment, is getting kitchens built, getting through the accessibility improvements. We all know that restaurants are really, truly the key catalyst for getting additional head of household jobs in town and really being the sort of base of our economy. Not to mention, who doesn't love great food? And I think that we've got some great restaurants. We just need a few more just to get that synergy going. And I think the downtown enhancement plan will really help that. But what we need to do as a community and looking at, potentially utilizing our ARP funds is look at ways that we can incentivize this and make it happen a little quicker, possibly loans, possibly grants, possibly looking at deferring some of the development impact fees over time. And so we'll be bringing a program here to council to talk about those ideas soon.
And I want to thank council and the public for those who attended the January Friday afternoon council meeting. We spent about 4 hours, a lot of it discussing different ways to assist businesses, particularly restaurants here in town. Council gave us some good direction, and we've been, as Phil said, investigating and moving forward on that. You also asked us to maximize utilization of the plazas. We talked about that already, so we'll just move on to look for funding and opportunities to fix existing street trees and sidewalks in the downtown. Nick, you want to tell us what your team's been doing on that?
Absolutely. This is an exciting one, way more exciting than this picture, actually. We've actually replaced 11 trees on Entrada. So if you've been down in Entrada lately, you've seen that. We've also fixed some major sidewalk tripping areas. So we've fixed those up. We've also done a total of 17 downtown street trees we've replaced, and also the 8 street trees in Sunken Gardens. So we're really making waves, and we're replacing 3 of the trees in the new Plaza this week. So 2 of them went missing somehow from our supplier, but we'll track those down and get those replaced. So yeah, lots of good, exciting, and we still have some money left. We are kind of holding back on some of the El Camino street trees, replacing those until, we kind of get an idea of the scope of the downtown infrastructure enhancement project.
I'm going to say that Amy from Juice Boss would disagree with you. She would think that the fresh pressed juice and the soups are as exciting as anything else you've talked about.
True. Any apologies to her?
Juice Box, I'm with you. I'm with her. Their fresh pressed juice and their soups are incredible. So, hey, and the other thing that's incredible, he didn't mention the removal of all of the very messy plum trees that we have been fighting for years with the mess they make on the sidewalk and in stores. And so I know a lot of people are happy with that. Phil, do you want to tell us about developing land use options for adapted reuse of Centennial Plaza? Yeah.
Yes, actually, we were going to bring this discussion to you tonight, as you know, but we'll bring it to you in 2 weeks. Good things take time to develop, and we're still developing some of the information that we're going to bring to you on this, but we're making great progress. As you know, the yellow structure was demolished. We've come up with some great ideas for a plan development rezoning of the property that will really kind of hone in the land uses for the property and hone in the design of buildings that can go in on this site. And then our next step will be to go through the Surplus Land Act process, but we're making great progress. This is all coming along, and in 2 weeks, we'll have a broader discussion.
Do you want to also tell us about exploring programs such as infrastructure assistance, parking flexibility, and zoning changes to promote new desired development?
Absolutely. And this is some of the discussion we'll be bringing you in a few weeks in alignment with some of the restaurant incentives that we'll be looking at. We're also going to look at what we call property development flexibility, what we should have in our downtown to help out building the infrastructure, looking at can we incentivize by doing some flexibility with our property development standards, like our parking and setbacks and different things to really get streamlined development and make sure we can see some of our underutilized space move forward, especially with locations like the Winters Garage north of Traffic Way and Colony Square lots and a couple other parcels. But it's amazing. Even without doing this, it's pretty fantastic what's happening right now. We're getting a lot of interest in a lot of our downtown parcels, and things are moving pretty quick. So, but we can help that go even better.
Thank you. One of our actions was to promote the preservation of the theater in Colony Square. As you know, theaters were hit very, very hard by the COVID shutdowns. Not only were the theaters themselves closed, a lot of the movies and other entertainment businesses were also closed, and so there weren't new movies coming out. As such, there has been a lot of pressure on both the movie theater operator and the landlord. The movie theater was unable to pay rent as they had no money coming in. The landlord has to make mortgage payments. The council has been very active, did a proclamation or a resolution trying to help the landlord or the owner of the building get some funding and try and work with his mortgage holder. That is still going on. The mayor and I do meet with the property owner fairly regularly to try and get updates on the lawsuit that is going on with that. The same thing with the operator of Galaxy Theater. Their lease did happen to expire during this period. They are renegotiating together, but everything is in flux. So we continue to put time and effort into making sure that we have a vibrant movie theater here in the downtown. It's a great theater. We all love going there, and there's some great movies coming out. So if you haven't been to the theater for a few years, go check it out again. It's a lot of fun. One of our actions was to pursue the Armory site as a potential location for replacement of Fire Station number 1. As the council knows, the city does not own the Armory site. There's a lot of confusion about that out there in the public. It is owned by the state of California. The state of California no longer uses the Armory site. They have relocated from this location, so it is vacant at this time. And it is now part of the state's affordable housing program. So under the state executive order, all state surplus property must be offered for affordable housing. The Armory is one of those sites. And so the state is saying that they should turn it into affordable housing. While we all have a desire to increase affordable housing here in the state, that Armory is a very important site. It's ideally located for response times. We do need to replace our 70-year-old fire station. This would be an ideal spot for that. We have been talking with the state and hope to negotiate a deal, which is provided for in the state government code, to swap properties and exchange other city property for the Armory site. And then the state would use that other city property for affordable housing. So we're working through that, talking with the state, but it is an ongoing process.
Michelle?
Yes.
Is it still a vision to ultimately co-locate fire and police on that Armory property so that we would have dispatch with both organizations together?
That is absolutely our ideal. We believe the property is large enough and the topography would allow for that. That would definitely be something we would explore as part of that, but that would be ideal. Thank you. Nick?
So one of the other items for downtown is to really utilize some of the alleyways. Shown on the slide here is the alleyway off Traffic Way behind, as you enter by Flum's Muffler, behind Whiskey and June's. And that alleyway right now is actually out for bid for construction bids. It's part of the Traffic Way Nardia. pavement rehabilitation. So we're going to fix that up and restripe it and make it look nice again. One other item, we have a downtown pavement improvement project as well that we're looking at the other alleyways that the city owns. And looking at ways we can maximize parking in those spaces as well. Lastly, one of the more exciting things I didn't show on here either was parking wayfinding signs. So kind of expanding, directing visitors that might come off the freeway, say at this point, with arrows to direct them to the various parking areas that we have around town. So a lot of work going into this, and hopefully reap some additional parking, prior to the downtown infrastructure enhancement project.
Nick, got a question for you on that. The alleyway in the picture, is that, I don't know the definition of an alleyway in terms of streets and roads. Is that different in the sense, is that actually technically a road? I mean, you're saying the city either owns it or has right of way on it. And does it go all the way to the freeway fence, where the cars are parked? And extend on the right all the way, let's say, to that guardrail along Flum's Muffler? How wide is it? And is it actually a road, or is it an alleyway and there's room for parking? What is it actually?
Yeah, it's alleyways and roadways. They're a little different. I mean, obviously alleyways are public ways, so they are considered just like public right of way. That we obtained from the state of California when Caltrans relinquished that and gave it to the city some time ago. And it does go up to the right of way, Caltrans right of way fence. And all that fencing in some areas is looking pretty shoddy, and we're looking at working with Caltrans to clean that up as well. As far as the width of that, I believe, I knew somebody's going to ask me this. It's probably like 20 feet wide, maybe the drive aisle, but then the parking stalls are a little deeper, and you can see in that plan or aerial photo, you can kind of see the outline of how that goes. So as you go more deep into that alleyway from right to left, it does narrow down some, and you do lose some of that parking.
So based on your drawing, your plan there, it will be paved, including those parking spots that are
That's
shown?
correct. Yep.
Cool.
So part of it's going to be fully reconstructed, and then parts will be, a mill and overlay.
And it's wide enough to have two-way traffic then?
Yes, it will. Yep.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Phil, do you want to take the next one, or maybe Lorelei?
Yes,
Yeah.
Lorelei can do that as well. But what I will tell you is our ability to communicate with business owners has it's more than doubled in recent months, and it's been spectacular. And Lorelei's the reason. So she's been doing great. We're a great team, and it's been amazing amount of connections that she brings to the community. So fantastic. But Lorelei, you want to weigh in super quick?
Sure. I think you're going
10
a little
seconds.
far with that, but thank you. I will say that since 2022 has begun, we have seen a huge resurgence in a lot of the energy and investment activity and interest in our community. We have 3 or 4 parcels for sale and properties for sale in downtown right now. And surprisingly, a lot of my time is just spent helping people find out information about those sites and look for alternative locations for other sites, and just playing a little bit of musical chairs with some of our downtown businesses, which has been really exciting. But the good news is there's a really nice influx and a lot of attention on Atascadero, and we're hearing great things as I go out to present to San Luis Obispo Rotary, for example, or outside agencies and conversations we're having. All of the great feedback that's coming back as Atascadero is really doing something special, and we're really watching and rooting for it, and we want to be part of it. So it's really exciting.
Thank you. Another part of economic and community vibrancy was having a safe and hospitable work environment and business environment. So we have a number of actions under that. We have work to enhance broadband infrastructure. Bill?
And we heard about that a little bit tonight with the proposed MOU with Paso Robles and North County coming together to really work on seeking funding for this. So we are making action happen, and lots more to come on this front.
Thank you. Laura, do you want to talk about restricted time parking?
Sure. So part of this has been looking at, and I know council has gotten some of those complaints where, people have asked about parking in downtown or that there isn't accessible parking for short term. And so part of that was evaluating what parking is out there. We did this a couple of years ago, the screenshot that you can see there, just to highlight the spots Nick just talked about, the parking wayfare signs that we're hopeful will help with some of that. And then as they're working through the design of the downtown infrastructure enhancement plan, we will also take into consideration how some of that new and increased parking can sort of offset some of the long-term parking that's been happening in some of these top spots in downtown. And then we'll hope that will address some of this.
Thank you. Bob, you want to tell us about expand our outreach for underrepresented residents team?
That'd be my pleasure. During the D20 process, we identified a definite need to reach out to our unhoused population. That's where the name came up from, for our underrepresented residents. We do have a CAT team, which stands for Community Action Team, and that's a collaboration between the county and Atascadero City, as well as other jurisdictions, in which we team up a police officer with a mental health professional. That works great, but it's really more designed for the mental health aspect. And although we may have some people with mental health disabilities in the unhoused community, that's not the sole reason they're unhoused. We really identified the need to have somebody or a group of somebody's reach out to those residents. And that's where our team was born. It's going to be an officer teamed up with ECHO, possibly TEMA, and some other organizations, just really seeing what services we can provide for unhoused population to assist them in becoming housed. Just finding ways for we can get them assistance. We had a great victory just last week, working with one individual that's been in our unhoused population for close to 4 years. He finally agreed to go to a residential treatment facility, made the conversion, is in the process of rehabilitating himself now, and we consider that a great victory.
Thank you. I do want to you have to look at these pictures maybe sometime. That loft that was built underneath the Lewis Avenue Bridge was absolutely incredible. And
it really was. In the structure, you see that gentleman climbing down, he would pull that structure up at nighttime, and that provided him some safety in the community. No one could access his location without his knowledge. So, and then the lower left picture is actually our CAT team teamed up with our mental health representative in TEMA, and they're out there doing our team business, but we're really looking to separate those two entities so they can really specialize in what they need to specialize in.
Nick, do you want to take increased pedestrian safety and access through the downtown infrastructure enhancement project?
Absolutely. So one of the things we're looking at a big goal of the downtown infrastructure enhancement project is pedestrian safety and bicycle safety and just safety in general. This is shown on the slide here is a beacon hawk down on Foothill, and I always forget the crossroad, but it's down on not too far from Highway 1, but very similar to what we're looking at East Mall is doing. And then also one other thing we've done and completed is the sidewalk improvements around Traffic Way and El Camino recently. And those have been a huge improvement there. And one of the biggest priorities with the transition plan. So we continue to look at this and find ways we can improve safety.
I'm going to still say that was magic on Traffic Way that you got 4 lanes. I think all of us that drove by, there's no way you're going to get, you got 4 lanes.
And it
It's
works.
really
There's-
helped the flow so much better. Yes.
We had a few naysayers, with some of the businesses nearby, but it worked, and it didn't seem to be like the parking on Highway 41, which took a month or two for people to figure out. They figured this out right away.
Phil, you want to talk about the general plan?
It's official. We've been talking about it for ages. We have actually started. A contract's awarded with the consultant, MIG. Pretty soon, we'll be starting to put some calendar dates online and out to the public to get them invited in to talk about the preliminary stages. And right now, we're still in the data and information gathering stage, but more to come. We are officially starting the general plan update.
And our last section under economic and community vibrancy is business infrastructure, technology, and support. So Phil, you want to take a few minutes and let us know what we're doing to support development at Del Rio? And I get a lot of status questions on this too. So if you could just talk a little bit about where we are, that'd be great.
Sure. Our team spends a lot of time with Del Rio because we've got 3 very substantial property owners with 3 very substantial projects that are now all moving forward. Right now, we're working with a major commercial development at the north east corner of El Camino Real and Del Rio, where there will be a part retail shopping center and part job center. That's going to be anchored by Valley Fresh Market. They're working on the final stages of the concept plan now, which will come before the Planning Commission and City Council before it goes to construction permits. And the same can be said of the Barrel Creek mixed use project. They're working on some final renditions of those plans right now that will come back to the City Council. They're asking for a general plan amendment on that particular property. That's on the west side of 101, adjacent to Del Rio. And then finally, on the bottom picture there is just a quick rendering of what could be coming forward on the southeast corner of Del Rio and El Camino Real. There is supposed to be there's going to be a planned RV park there, some commercial buildings, and some residential. And that plan is being modified a little bit, probably come back before us, but still working on that. That was the former Walmart site. So a lot happening, a lot of moving parts. We're looking at traffic improvements at the same time. And so it's taking us a little time to wrangle all these projects together, but in a very short time, later this spring, early summer, we'll see all of those come forward. And a couple of them will be in construction before long. And you might have noticed also there's construction going on the northwest corner of Del Rio and El Camino Real already, where there's a retaining wall being built to widen a portion of Del Rio as it approaches the bridge there, and then improving the corner and the signals and everything else there. So a lot happening to support that particular location.
Thank you, Phil.
May I, Director, a lot of people ask, that the old Walmart property, my understanding it is now officially no longer the Walmart property. It is under new ownership.
That is accurate. It absolutely is no longer the Walmart property. It is under new private ownership, local ownership, mind you. And we're very happy about that.
Yes, great, thank you.
Jerry, you want to tell us about online payment and tracking system?
Yes, I'd love to. So we did get the online payment system up and running with HDL companies that also does our sales tax consulting. So they do this transient occupancy tax collection system for many of the other agencies throughout California and in our area. So we were able to get that up and running. So people that have hotels or short-term rentals can pay online if they'd like, or mail in an old-fashioned check if they prefer. We've gotten a lot of good feedback on that. And we are looking into the different options that we have to collect credit card payments through the permitting system. So we've gotten requests on that, and we're working with the companies that work with our existing software program to get that working up as well.
Just a quick question on that. once we start doing that, which is a wonderful benefit for the businesses, but then there can also be a cost, ongoing to the city. So I know sometimes that, when you're paying by credit card, there is sometimes an extra fee to help compensate for that. What are we doing in that realm?
So for the TOT option on that is people can pay online with their credit card. And then in that case, they would pay the fee. If they chose to pay, use as a e-check, the city gets charged 50 cents per transaction on that. So the city does take care of that fee so they can pay free if they would like.
We can handle 50 cents for sure. Double it and we're good. Yeah. All right, great. Thank you, Director.
Phil, you want to tell us what we've done on potential policies related to wastewater capacity charges and other development fees?
Sure. As part of our restaurant incentive program that we'd like to bring back to council, we'll be talking a little further about these details and some of the ways that we can help some of the businesses that we really need in our downtown and help them get those startup costs down or at least spread those costs out over time. So we'll be looking at that more closely. But in analyzing that, some of these, especially the wastewater capacity fee and some of those development impact fees that apply to new development or apply to new land uses can be a substantial thing right up front. So we'll be taking a closer look at that. We don't have a definitive program on these yet. This is a tough one. So I think it's going to need a little more attention and a little collaboration.
As we discussed in January during that economic development study session, there are a lot of challenges as you waive fees or give funds to businesses that may not make it economical for the business or the city. And so we are still working through some of those issues, but hope to come back with the program soon. Okay, Nick, and this actually Bob and Matt want to talk about all the opportunities and grants to fund infrastructure and programs that we have here at the city.
Sure, I can start on this. Actually, we've been pursuing a lot, as I mentioned earlier, with the downtown infrastructure enhancement project. Ryan Betts has been really just shaking every tree that he can possibly find. Unfortunately, a lot of these grants are, you need to be a disadvantaged community or some other criteria that we don't quite meet. We did apply for Clean California grant, RAISE grant, also active transportation program we've been looking at. The HSIP grant, Highway Safety Improvement Program, we actually have a draft of our local road safety plan, a very interesting document that has kind of looked at all the issues around town and kind of prioritized and came up with some solutions for those. But we need to, this will allow us to apply for these future HSIP grants and possibly for the downtown or other traffic issues around town as well. Prop 68, we actually got money for that for Lake Park. So we're looking at replacing the dock out there and doing some sidewalk improvements. And then lastly, for Public Works, a clean water SRF or state revolving fund grant we're looking at for our treatment plant. So we've been very, very busy with that.
Well, thank you, Nick. Maybe we should transfer police to Public Works so we can get more grants. We did apply for and receive our office for traffic safety grant as we usually do. And this year you have a beautiful picture of our brand new speed trailer up there. That works great. It's used to collect data for Public Works actually. So I guess that's yours too. But also for the ability to reduce speed. It's just a knowledge awareness in the area. And along with the OTS grant, we also received monies for special enforcement and education programs as well, which is really a time for officers to go out and expand their knowledge of things going on and introduce themselves to the public in a polite manner, not just with red lights behind them.
Grants have also been good to the fire department. We also received OTS grant this last year, and due to shipping delays, we finally received the product. So we're looking forward to training on all of those pieces of equipment for the public. Those are brand new Jaws of Life piece of equipment, and then really fancy, strong scissors. That's the only way we describe them. But those are huge advancements for us, being able to stay with the technology of metals these days and the way that cars are built. We actually have the equipment to be able to get into those cars and be able to safely extricate people out. So that is about an $82,000 grant that we are very thankful to have and put into service. Also within this period of time, we had a assistance for firefighter grant, which AFG gave us one grant funded individual, and council made the decision to change that grant funded individual into a full-time permanent employee. So we're able to add them to the books for the future to come. And then we have also applied for 3 more firefighters through that same AFG program. We're looking forward to hearing if we're able to bring them on board also. We hope to be able to hear within the next 9 months. And then lastly, Fire Safe Council has been gracious enough to give us $75,000 through a whole bunch of different programs. Our chipping program, which we offer free of service to all of our residents, $30,000 one year, $31,000 the other year. And we've been able to offer that through a city contractor, go out and chip all that fuel for our residents. And then also 14,000 from Fire Safe Council came for our fuel management consultation program, which I'll get into a little bit later when we talk about our connection to the public and providing some of those added features to our residents.
A lot of grants. We're always looking for grants to stretch our dollars as far as we can. Phil, do you want to talk about creating and incentivizing a new customer satisfaction survey?
Yes, we haven't got the survey out yet, but we're working on getting a survey out there and some incentives for folks to take the survey. We've got some great ideas forming. But in the meantime, what we're doing is going through all of our processes that we have in community development to see if we can improve things. And we found a number of ways we can already improve things, especially in the construction permit process, our plan check process, and our building code review process, and just our general customer service process. So this is something we're paying extra special attention to. Always work to be done on this all the time. So more to come.
Thank you. Supporting the expansion of bridge works. So we used SB 1090 funds, which were funds that we received specifically for economic development to help with the Bridgeworks expansion that's going on. Bridgeworks is expanding into an adjacent area over there at the Creekside building. It looks to be absolutely beautiful. I have walked over there and saw the improvements and all of that over there. So if you know people that are looking for co-working spaces, it'd be great to see that completely filled. They're doing a great job filling it. There's a lot of desire for it. And we can even do more. So that one is done. Engineering standards, Nick.
This must be the most interesting slide, I'm sure, of the presentation. Anyways, engineering standards were, our current standards were actually fully adopted in 1994. So if anyone knows Greg Luke, he was a city engineer at that time. And that was probably, I don't know, 3 or probably 4 or 5 people before me. But we did modify it in 2014 and to incorporate some stormwater requirements. But these standards are basically anything from how the roads are built to how manholes, are constructed, materials and workmanship and all those things. And we are going to be looking at these, updating a lot of these standards and modernizing them in the next year, we hope, and kind of correlating that with the general plan as well. So, on the general plan, we'll be looking at arterial roads, collector roads, rural roads, how wide should those be and all those things. So, I think the timing is perfect on this, and I really look forward to spending some time on these. I really do. So
We know.
not pavement management, but
It's all the same.
Engineers are a little
We,
odd.
we appreciate you very much.
We said that we were going to perform critical third-party review of permitting processes with an eye towards essentialism. What is it that we really have to do? And let's look to see if there's other stuff that isn't as critical. As Phil said, we have started looking at it internally. We have not issued the RFP for a company to do that essentialism evaluation, but we have been doing a lot of meeting with contractors. I've met with several contractors. I've met with several businesses here in town that have either gone through our permitting process or have heard stories about our permitting process. I really would like to hear from people. We tend to hear from people that either say the process was great, there was nothing wrong, or people that there was nothing right and all of that. I want to get real honest feedback on what can we do better. So if you're a contractor or a homeowner or somebody that's gone through the process and you have ideas, please email me, rrickard@atascadero.org. I'd love to sit down and chat with you with an eye towards this on how can we make it easier for people and how can we make it easier for staff so that they can spend time in those areas where it makes it easier for people. So it's kind of a circle. So we should be issuing an RFP sometime probably late summer, early fall, and get the outside view in too at that same time. But in the meantime, we're continuing to try and reach out and get that feedback.
Michelle, I have a quick question on the whole permitting process.
Yes.
A lot of cities are going to online type of permitting, and I know we're not. I don't know if we're doing it at all, but is there plans to do that for our city? I don't know if it's easier or not. Sometimes it is, sometimes it isn't.
We are working towards some of that, taking some of those small steps. So some of the online payments, figuring out who's going to pay for the additional costs of credit cards and some of that. We have started moving towards and put in this budget some large plan check tables so you can actually see those plans electronically. So we are starting to look at that. A lot of those cities that do say they take electronic, we do take electronic plan checks for some smaller items. A lot of cities do that. So the whole technology is getting a little bit better and we are starting to move towards that. But it's a big undertaking.
Yeah, I'm sure it is. All right, thank you.
Thank you. Phil, did you want to add anything to that? Apparently not.
Sorry.
Okay.
Sorry about that. I missed that one. Yeah, we're continuing, like I mentioned earlier, continuing to work towards. I don't think I have anything else to add. Sorry.
Okay, that's okay. Laura, 3CE.
Done. No, council had committed to bringing this back in February of 2022. We did that on February 8th, presented it to the city council, resulted in the council adopting a resolution to request joining 3CE. And then on the 28th, we adopted the ordinance to authorize the implementation of community choice energy in the city. And so this one, you can put a big check mark. We are done.
And I want to thank the staff for a really thorough and professional staff report that gave us what we needed to be able to make that decision with one discussion and to have a really clear discussion of the matter.
Thank you. Laura did amazing on that. And that is your first strategic priority. So before I jump into fiscal infrastructure efficiency and sustainability, we all doing okay? Keep going?
Could we have a stretch break?
Yes, we can go ahead and do that. It is 7:34. Why don't we come back at 7:40? Is that good?
Sure.
All right, 6 minutes. See you back. All right, we have, City Council has just come back from a break, and we are going to move on now to fiscal infrastructure and efficiency and sustainability.
Thank you, Mayor. So we defined fiscal infrastructure, efficiency, and sustainability to mean continuing to be responsible and accountable stewards of our resources now and into the future by efficiently and effectively investing in modern and reliable infrastructure and equipment and maintaining financial stability regardless of economic conditions. And we wanted to make sure that staff has the tools, technology, and resources they need to do their job. That was what fiscal sustainability meant to the community, the council, and staff. The first part of that was asset management, replacement, and modernization. We have several actions under that. So we have purchase and implement an asset management system. And Luke, you're going to tell us about that one.
Yes, so it's been a software package that we've needed for some time. And staff's going to start the project to do a needs assessment and expectations list late summer, early fall, to kick that project off. And our new system is gonna include a phased inventory and condition assessment of all city assets. So it's gonna take quite a bit of time. We have a handful of assets around.
And Luke's going to tell you a little bit later about some of the other things he's been doing on the action plan, and go from there. Website and CAD, RMS, radios, all sorts of fun things. So Jerry, you want to talk about this slide?
Yes, so we have done a great job in this budget cycle in really beefing up our reserves for our vehicles and our technology. So prior to this, we had funded them, but at kind of lesser amounts. So as the vehicles became more expensive, for example, we didn't necessarily have the funds to be able to put additional amounts away to really replace the full cost of that vehicle. So now it's more reflective of the current costs of the vehicle, including the new technology that needs to go in there. So we're really able to catch up on some of that. And technology as well. We were able to put a lot away for equipment replacement and to do some one-time replacements as well. And so as soon as we get the asset management system up and running, we'll have a better idea of what our real needs are for some of those other items that are a little bit harder to measure, like the equipment and the infrastructure, but we are working in that direction.
Why don't you keep going?
Oh, yes. So this cycle, like I was saying, it has a lot of one-time purchases that we were really able to get going, which is great news. The computer-aided dispatch, records management system, the CAD RMS, we had radios, we have radio repeater equipment, ambulance, mowers, all kinds of things we were able to get replaced. And these are vital pieces of equipment that we really need to use to serve the community. So we're excited about that.
We talked about beginning replacement of fire station. Oops, go right ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, sorry. On that last slide, just to clarify, is that our wish list up there, or is that those are projects that are already being underway or have been achieved?
Those are underway, so they are in our current budget cycle.
Excellent. Thank you.
And or already achieved, so yes. Fire Station 1, we talked about this when we talked about the armory. Fire Station number 1 is 70 years old. It has many issues with it. It definitely does not meet modern fire station standards. So while we are still figuring out the site, will we be able to get the armory? Do we have to replace there? We certainly have not been stagnant. A group of us went to a fire station conference. Didn't even know those things existed till we started looking at our fire station conference. Very, very well worthwhile. It included Chief Masterson, myself, Chief Bryson. We had invited somebody from Public Works. They were unable to make it. And it wasn't even Nick. Yeah. So we had a group of us go back. There is a lot of science that goes into building fire stations, looking at contamination zones as you go to these fires and have plastics and different things burning and metals and what that does long-term to fires' health. A lot of the new fire stations really look at separating out the different zones of the fire department, fire station, and looking through all that. We do have a committee that meets monthly, looking at other fire stations, new public safety centers. So it's not just fire stations. Sorry, Chief Bob, didn't mean to leave you out here. And dispatch. So we are looking at other successful public safety centers and talking to various architects that do specialize in this, looking for the most cost-effective way to get the most bang for our buck in a modern fire station. So a lot of work going on that. Nick, are you next?
I am. So one of the other things we're looking at is tools to really build staff capacity. Emergency generators are one of those things. The city has a dozen lift stations, and some of these lift stations have varying storage capacity. So if we lose power, some of them need to have an emergency generator started with every hour, and others have days. So with storage capacity. So we looked at some of these items for not only the lift stations, but also the lift stations themselves being replaced to build some staff capacity. So we did have the ribbon cutting over at lift station number 2, no pun intended, but and that was hopefully interesting for the council to see that. But really, we're working on lift station number 13 right now as well. So traffic waste sewer. And so there's a lot of improvements we're doing in the equipment that we're getting that staff has spent a lot of time that is freeing us up to do other things.
Nick, I have a quick question on that.
Sure.
If the lift station goes down because of power outage, how much time do you have before an emergency generator needs to provide power before you start having an issue?
Yeah, it could be anywhere from like an hour to a couple days. So it just depends on, you kind of look at how much storage is in that system. So the wet well itself can hold an amount, but then you can also include the gravity sewer pipes leading into that lift station. So it just really depends. But typically, every like once a day to twice a day is a typical need for starting those up.
All right, thank you.
Nick, do you want to tell us where we are on the sidewalk repair amnesty program?
Sure.
So this is for sidewalks not in the downtown.
Right. So, a lot of our sidewalks are along El Camino or along arterial roads. In our code, it makes the sidewalks are repairs are responsibilities of the adjacent property owner. So we're kind of looking at that. In our code, there is one or two words that we could add. I think that would protect the city a little bit more. But we are looking at some assistance program. When we do have, like for instance, recently we had the El Camino car wash. There was a pretty significant tripping hazard there. We worked with them, really found the most minimal amount that we could charge them for an encroachment permit, worked with the property owner. They actually invested, got that repaired, and it's going to be hopefully lasting a long time, as long as those trees don't start pulling them up again. But so we continue to work with property owners on this, and we'll explore additional ways we can kind of lessen the burden on property owners and still protect the city.
And we are looking at trying to work with specific contractors for grinding and some of those to maybe get some efficiencies in order for people to do that. In addition to even waiving those minimal encroachment permit fees. So we will be working and bringing you a program sometime in the next year on that.
Right. And actually, California Joint Power Insurance Agency, CJPIA, actually has a master agreement with Precision Concrete. They've got pricing and everything else. So we're looking at that as well.
The next part of fiscal infrastructure were financial strategies. And Jerry, I think you have the next three.
Yes, thank you. So this graph may look familiar to you all. I hope so. It has been council's long-term strategic or financial strategy for some time now, and it has been very effective in really managing the city's fiscal health through all of the ups and downs in the economy. We were wanting to look at some of these other options to kind of prepaying UALs or the unfunded accrued liability for the CalPERS, some of these other options here. As part of the budget, we didn't get them in this current budget, but we still would like to kind of keep these in mind and look at these in the future as opportunities. The council's done a really good job at looking at kind of the long-term impacts of each of the decisions that has been made. And that's really helpful to have that kind of long-term perspective when you're looking at short-term decisions such as a 2-year budget. So we do that commitment for the 2 years, but we have the 7-year forecast in there. We're really looking down the line and to make sure that any decision that we make now, we know what the impact is to the extent that we can at this point and making sound decisions there. So the general fund reserves have been helpful in making sure that we can have steady services to the community when there's a downturn in the economy. We don't have to cut services. So that's been really helpful for us all along the way. And this is just a graph to show the D20, Measure D20 funds that were in the current budget. So as we had discussed all along those meetings that the city manager looked at the beginning of this presentation, we wanted to be sure that we had some ability to build in growth over time on the Measure D20 funds. So this graph is showing that dark purple section, the 66% of Measure D20 funds that are currently budgeted in this cycle are for ongoing operations. That leaves the rest of it for one-time operations. So there is room for growth in Measure D20 funds as we go forward. So that's great news for us.
Laura, do you want to talk about opportunities and strategies to grow the organization?
Sure. So this is a lot of what's been happening over the last year or so as there's been changes, not just with what the community needs and as the community grows, but just internally, departments have been evaluating staffing. They've been looking at, as current with, if someone moves on or we have a position opening, they've really been evaluating what that position does, how that position best fits in the department and best services the community. And then you heard both the chiefs talk earlier about a lot of the grants that they've been looking for to actually help grow staffing. And so we've been utilizing a lot of that to look at ways that we can maximize staffing, but in some ways minimize some of the costs to the city. So it's an ongoing thing that all department heads have been doing.
This one's yours also.
Again, oh, I have three in a row. Okay. So a big one on this one was to really talk about operational efficiencies and look at ways that we could, make small investments that would give us a larger organizational output. And this is a lot of what, again, departments have been doing over the last year. We've been looking at, things like increasing our licensing for laserfish. And I think Luke will talk about that a little bit more, but we increase our licenses for that. And then it allows staff to better access and have more access to our online system to, upload documents, to easily retrieve them, to do research when, they need to look back at minutes, resolutions, ordinances, that type of stuff. So, making a small modest investment there really increases that. And then it allows more access also for the public, which then reduces a lot of our public records requests because people have more access and readily available information that they're looking for. We also have things that we've done with, equipment replacement they were talking about, and using grants. We'll talk a lot about grants, but using grants for that. And then really just also doing grant management. I think that's going to transition me right into the next one as well. But capitalizing on grant opportunities. And so we are in the process right now. We're just waiting on a scope of work so that we can contract with a professional grant services firm, which will actually help us more. Staff has been amazing in what they're doing consistently with looking for grants between all of the work that Public Works has been doing, that fire is doing, that police is doing. I know recreation, Jennifer Fanning's on it a lot with looking at those grants that come through and then, how they all sort of work interconnectedly, but then being able to utilize a grant services firm will really move some of that forward. So we make a modest investment, but then we can see a huge return on that if we really can go after some of these grants and some of these grants that we don't know about, or, as Nick mentioned, a lot of the ones that we aren't competitive for. Well, they have ways that can make us more competitive, or, those other grants that we wouldn't necessarily know to look for, they will. So those are, some of the things that we've been doing to really be more efficient and more sustainable.
We said that we would explore public and private partnership to achieve action plan goals. This is another area, similar to grants, that we are very active in. Everything from probably an upcoming partnership with ECHO on outreach for our team and TEMA, all the work they do, the broadband partnership with Paso Robles that we talked about today, the regional partnership regarding action plan or strategic plan to help with homelessness that Councilmember Funk and the rest are working on. So we are always looking on how do we maximize those partnerships and work together on the common goals. And so we continue to have this as a baseline for everything we do on the action plan. The next area was transparency and accountability. And the first one, I'm going to have Luke tell you about our website project that he's leading.
Yes, our website is clearly our primary platform for disseminating information so that we can be transparent. Our website has long been past its lifetime, so we need to replace it. Council approved the project in February. We have our kickoff meetings coming up in the beginning of May to start that project. We're hopeful for a go live date of the end of this calendar year. So we're very excited. And to that effort, Council approved a staff position for a website and social media technician. And we have hired our internal Amanda Muther to fill that spot. With Dylan starting recently, Amanda is now starting to slowly transition into that role. And we're excited to have her on board.
Perfect. We also have records management, which I have you down as, but Laura could probably address too. We'll have Luke talk about it.
Yeah, Laura spoke to this a little bit. Laserfish has long been our platform for maintaining our public records. And there is what's called web link that allows the public and staff to have read-only access to these records. We've since last fall increased our licensing dramatically, so we don't run into that annoying error anymore. And we are looking for ways to increase staff access to that so they start to pour in more public records, thus increasing public access to that. So searching on the new website will bring up records from Laserfish and hopefully getting more public records into the hands of the public more easily.
We are going to prepare, publicize, and widely distribute an annual report on the use of Measure D20 funds. We're a little bit delayed on that. Took a little hiccup on getting the one out for last year, telling people where it is, but our website has a ton of information. It has the not only the table on where we're spending all the information from the brochure. It also has a lot more detail on each of those line items. So if you click on the line items, you'll find a lot of detail on that. The D20 brochure should be out in the mail anytime in the next week or so. And that is the first of annual ones. Part of the stuff that we'll be talking about tonight on performance metrics will be for future D20 brochures, so we can start reporting on how successful or unsuccessful we are with the actions that we took. We're on to our next priority focus area, which is ensuring public safety and providing exceptional city services. The definition is that we have the tools, resources, and professional staffing necessary to create and maintain an environment where our community, whether they be residents, businesses, visitors, and staff, feel safe, served, and mutually respected. Again, quite a few actions under the first portion of that, which is staffing. So hire and retain an adequate number of staff to achieve our priorities as part of the budget. We added some positions that you probably have already heard about tonight. We added a number of police positions, 4 police officers, a dispatcher, an additional police officer to serve as our team member. We were able to formalize and keep our 2 battalion chief positions in the fire department. Our SAFER grant had expired and we would have to go back to the other the website and social media person to try and help all of us keep our websites current. Right now, everybody is trying to do that within their own departments. It's nobody's job, and that information tends to get old. And we look at each other and go, "Oh, do you remember to update the website?" And no, and when you search, you currently bring up old year stuff. So we're pretty excited as a whole staff to have somebody help us get through that. So we made a lot of progress as part of this budget cycle. We're still doing recruitments for a lot of the positions, but we're making progress.
Could the chief comment further? I know it takes a while for police officers in particular, because we often have to send people to the academy and then they have to be in training for a while. Could you comment on the extent to which we now have officers that are actually active on patrol, that we've been able to recruit as a result of not only this council's action, but of our public being willing to invest in the future of this community through passing Measure D20?
It'd be my pleasure to. Currently, we have 2 recruit cadets in the academy down in Lompoc. We have one getting ready to start the academy up in South Bay Regional, Monterey. We just recently, the photo up there actually is our 2 newest hires. We stole one from the city of Porterville, a 13-year veteran. It's easy to sell when you live near the beach. And then the other one just recently graduated the Fresno Academy. And in addition to that, we just had another recruit graduate the Fresno Academy. He just started his field training program. and found out today, one of our lateral candidates just turned in his 2-week resignation and will be starting with us in May 2nd. So that leaves us 1 police officer vacancy total. And we currently only have 2 dispatch vacancies, and we're in the testing process for that.
That's enormous progress. Thank you.
You. Laura, you want to tell us about essentialism evaluation?
Sure, excuse me. So we are actually in the process, of researching firms so that we can do some interviews with those firms, pick one and get that going hopefully by this summer sometime. So this is moving forward, and then we will start the evaluation of each department.
Thank you. We said that we would provide competitive salaries and benefits and appropriate classifications for all employees. We have adopted 4 new MOUs and a resolution. We did a salary survey of all of the other cities within the county, looked at competitiveness. As you know, we were at the bottom for almost every position, which made it not only hard to recruit employees, but very hard to retain employees. We made significant progress in these MOUs, particularly in police, but all departments and positions, trying to bring them up to at least the middle of the pack with those. And so a lot of that progress was made as we adopted those MOUs. Of course, it's a tough game, as my understanding, some of the other cities around here also are giving large increases. We also said that we would provide opportunities for employee growth and succession. This is one that is very, very important, even in very lean times. Atascadero has always believed in training and professional development for its employees. We think that makes us more lean, more nimble, and better to cost effectively provide services in the long run if we make that investment. I wanted to take this opportunity to have the chiefs talk a little bit about some of the exciting trainings that they provide.
Given the fact that he's pointing at me, I think that means I go first. So ongoing training, we are lucky to have 2 individuals on their own accord go ahead and enroll in paramedic school. So we have 2 additional paramedics that just got certified this year. And we have 2 more of our current staff that are in paramedic school due to be certified this next following year. So that's a significant increase in the amount of advanced life support services that we can provide to the public on an everyday. At a minimum, there's 1 paramedic on every single fire engine. We're almost getting to the point now where when a fire engine pulls up, you have a minimum of 2 paramedics. So it's pretty promising for the future of the organization and the potential need or expansion of any of those resources, because you can spread them out quite well. In addition to that, during this last cycle, we instituted a 1-week training for all of our new supervisors or soon to be supervisors. So anybody that was going to be taking our officer, acting officer or OIC rank, soon to be captains, we facilitated a 1-week kind of intensive type of training for each one of them. So that was new for us. We facilitated 9 promotions, all different types of ranks, from firefighter, engineer, fire captain, and all the way up. So quite a bit of testing. And then also we are fortunate now to have almost everybody off of probation. So when employees on probation, there's somewhere between 200 to 300 hours of training that go into that employee while they're on duty. And so that's a major accomplishment to get our firefighters off probation. And then we have only a couple of other individuals that are still going through that training, but a big burden on the organization as far as ongoing training and continued advancement. And one more thing, we are reinstituting, as I pass off the chief here, we are reinstituting our interagency training with the police department. So we are in preparation of building a large scale disaster drill, which will be a tabletop exercise between our police department, fire department managers, and then also our dispatchers. So we'll get everybody in the same room, flop a very crazy scenario in front of them, and we'll work through that together. So not only promoting teamwork, but also promoting our ability to open an EOC, run an incident command center, and all the different steps that are going to go into maybe a large wildland fire within the community, or maybe some type of hostile event. So we're going to throw a whole bunch of stuff at them and see how they handle it, and then also look for opportunities to how we increase that training moving out for every single one of our officers.
I do have a question on that, and it might be, I'm not sure if it's more for our city manager or for you, Chief. I know that we did it citywide maybe 8-9 years ago, you know, of course, a smaller version of what we did at EMI in 2016. Are there any plans to incorporate that more citywide, the type of scenario that you talked about?
Currently, that's under the job description of our Community Risk Reduction Battalion Chief, and he is going through all of the training to become compliant with the EOC operations in California. Since he did come from Montana, there's quite a bit of information that he needed to get underneath his belt and training so that he could bring that type of curriculum back to the city. But yeah, that would be our intent, would be able to bring something back for all city staff to be able to get refreshed on what their requirements are in the EOC, if we need to pull that trigger, but then also just what their responsibilities are for just a major event within the city that stresses the city services beyond our normal day-to-day.
Yeah, I think that can be really important for everyone, even for council, because that's not something, I think I'm probably the only, I mean, Charles may have gone through a similar type of training in other areas, but I know in the times that I've gone through it, it's been very valuable. And I understand Chief Anderson got to go to EMI with San Luis last week.
He did.
So lucky
Yes.
duck.
Mhm.
Thank you, Chief.
And just so you know, there are a lot of local opportunities in April right here for some trainings for logistics, for the finance bureau, for the planning section, which does involve a lot more of the city. And that has been offered to employees, and we do have some employees taking advantage of those local trainings too. So we're definitely working together. We all know that it's not just police and fire. That's who you see on the front lines. It does involve public works. A lot of the times is the key focus, and then finance, technology. Everybody has to help to respond to those emergencies. So
The
we'll be
nice
working
reason
through
for
that.
council to be involved is because we have far less of a role than we like to think in our minds that we have, like we want to get out there and do something. And really that's not our role. So from a policy perspective, it's helpful for all of us to be reminded of what our role is in that.
Which is very critical.
Time. It is very critical. Yes, it
for
is.
council.
Yes, it is.
Absolutely. Thank you.
And it is the zone program, Zone Haven, far enough along that you got training staff on scenarios for how to manage the things at key intersections in the event of a fire emergency during this coming fire season.
Yeah, so fire staff and law enforcement received significant amount of training for Zone Haven last year. We're going to roll it out and have more of an active part with our Public Works Department. And we're going to incorporate that in our June drill, also as a refresher, but then also to kind of take it to the next level and make sure that everybody's ready to implement that program in the event that we need it.
Okay, thank you.
Chief, you want to talk about some of your trainings?
I was just concerned when he said disaster and police in the same sentence. I thought he was referring to us. Some of the training we've been doing and just innovative training is we looked at our range training, and of course, you know, we're cops, we like to shoot guns on the range, but we really have started to implement our weaponless defense training in conjunction with that. In all reality, an officer hopes to go his whole career without having to discharge his firearm, but we tend to arrest a lot of people. We'd really like to have our officers well trained in weaponless defense. Part of that is we purchased, it's called a wrap restraint device. It's a hard-bodied device that we literally wrap a subject in that's flailing about, and it limits their movement, but it doesn't limit their movement in the old style ways of a hobble or something like that, which causes positional asphyxiation. We just recently trained our entire department on that at the last range in conjunction with that. we're just looking for innovative ways to really reduce the amount of injuries to people we encounter and have to restrain or resist us, and also reduce injuries to our staff. And in that endeavor, we're also participating on a voluntary basis through our gym membership with a local Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu endeavor, Paragon. They're doing a law enforcement training session twice a week. And we do that in conjunction with Paso Robles Police Department. So that's really building some confidence in some officers to be able to really use deflection techniques instead of going to real hands and fists and strikes and things like that. We're really focusing on control holds more than anything else. That's a great thing. In addition to that, the pitch photo showed is that's our local weaponless defense training that we participate in on an annual basis to make sure our officers qualify on everything they're still taught in the academy, and then introduce new things. And of importance of that is you'll notice that we've really gotten away from, since the state of California has outlawed, a carotid restraint or a knee on the back of the neck. We're really looking to be able to control subjects without that use of force in really a calming manner.
Thank you. We committed to exploring other retention and attraction strategies. There were a lot of things in the MOU, different incentives and those types of things. What I really want to talk about tonight is NeoGov. This was actually a recruitment software package that also comes with a whole recruiting platform out there. And it has been very successful for us so far. We got up on the platform in October. We've had 304 applicants for full-time jobs applied through the platform. We were able to successfully recruit. A lot of those successful recruitments that Chief talked about have run through NeoGov, in addition to being able to hire Dylan here, who I introduced you all to, the new admin assistant in the city manager's office. So we're very happy with this. We're still figuring out the ways to maximize it, but this has made recruitment a lot easier for all of our departments and tracking easier. So this was a good investment. This was actually a D20 investment. It's at the very bottom, small amount, and everybody's going, what is that? But it was employee recruitment, which was critical to be able to attract and retain those employees. Let's see, provide training and professional development opportunities. Was this going to be you, Bob?
Well, I can share it with Matt, but I don't know if he has anything for it yet.
Okay.
No, I'm kidding. Just a couple of slides up there of some examples. On the lower left is a class that not only did we send people to attend, but we also sponsored here. That's a communications class to teach de-escalation, and the overarching theme. I don't know if any of you noticed when I'm walking around with my coffee cup, there's a sticker on it and it says "Seek victory, not glory." And that was from that class specifically to really teach us to win what we're doing, but not seek the glory in it. And that tends to create an ego, and then an ego tends to create the desire to actually win regardless of all costs. And that's where we get in a lot of trouble. So check the ego, check the glory seeking, and go for the victory instead. That's a great class. We're looking to sponsor it again and possibly offer it to the fire department as well, because it just doesn't deal specifically with law enforcement. It's just a great class. The other one is an online class that we're currently doing with our supervisors and commanders and myself. That is an outfit called Echelon Front. It's basically a bunch of retired Navy SEALs. Actually, the president of the company was a lieutenant commander during the Ramadi incident, highest decorated Navy SEAL outfit during the war. But they do a leadership class, and it's principles of, example, just check the ego, don't silo, things of that effect. But that class is offered entirely online and in 3 live sessions a week. So all of our supervisors and above can log on to that, get the principles. We talk about it in every staff meeting. And they're encouraged to share it with their staff as well, all the way down to the newest hire. So everybody in the department's thinking the same leadership technique and how to get things accomplished through partnerships and not siloing, things of that nature. Just a couple of examples of what we're doing for mentorship and future planning.
Matt, did you want to add anything?
No, I don't think I was supposed to talk on this one. I think
Okay.
Chief Masterson's just picking on me.
I will let you know that everybody is doing a lot of professional development and training. It's great now that COVID is opened a lot of things back up. While we certainly took advantage of virtual training while things were shut down, it's a lot easier to actually leave town and go and dedicate that spot. I'm not having Nick or Jerry or Luke talk about their trainings on governmental accounting or latest engineering standards.
Thank you, because we do have closed session.
That's
after this.
exactly. But they are there and they are being provided. Hire for Heart. This continues to be what we look for in our employees. We want the right attitude. We want somebody who cares, can care about the community. I think you see what that gets you as part of these teams here. Certainly that was one of the things that I was impressed with Dylan about. He's here, whatever time it is, listening to a city council meeting. So that's fantastic. And it's something that we will continue to look for. Chief, you want to talk about the PD Explorer program?
Sure. Actually, when I got here, it was almost, I'd say close to DOA. With COVID, we were really leery as a department to bring the young people into the department and put them in an environment where they might be exposed to it, especially earlier on. We since reevaluated, we're re-implementing our Explorer program and basically relaunching it, if you want to say that. We had to redo our certificate with the Boy Scouts of America for our Explorer program, and then we're really going to launch it out again because most of our Explorers were of age when COVID hit, that they were walking out the door and they did so and moved on with their lives. So we're really looking to re-engage our youth in that and actually create that homegrown product. We have several of our current officers who came up through the Explorer and Cadet program and are still with us and have been with us for quite a few years. So we're looking forward to doing that.
Chief, could you address similarly what status of post-COVID statuses of the volunteer program?
I sure can. During the COVID, obviously during the height of COVID, we shut down almost everything to minimize contact. The VIP program, or VIPS, Volunteers in Police Services, is looking to re-engage as well. We have revamped a few things in it. To be honest with you, quite a few of our volunteers show a hesitancy to return unless the entire department's been vaccinated. So we're dealing with that issue and looking to readdress how we're going to relaunch that.
Thank you. We talked about exploring a wider city employee recognition and commendation program. Frankly, this is an area that I think we can do better at. It is very hard to do one of your traditional employee of the month or any of that. We have a lot of amazing employees that do amazing things every day, and trying to narrow it down to who, one or two. We have started talking as department head team very briefly about other programs that we can look at and how do we really recognize the fantastic job that our employees do. What you see up there is a Christmas card that the department heads send out, but it's with a very small gift card for local restaurants. But we're really looking to expand the program, and we'll be doing so in the next year. Nick, you want to tell us how we are working to ensure that employees have the tools necessary to do their job?
Absolutely. So on the slide here, Public Works actually got a few new pieces of equipment. There on the left, that's actually a towable boom lift. It was significantly less than a boom lift that you might see a tree contractor with, but it does the same thing and it's much more nimble. We can get into the zoo areas with it just by towing it in there. And so that's been a great tool that has saved us a lot of time and helped our guys do the job. Also a skid steer on the bottom there. We found that one used, and it's been something that's been used a lot. And then just one of our replacement skip and drags up there that also gets used a lot. I know the public safety, they've gotten new radios and are working on that. So there's a lot of, I know it's not public works, but other departments are getting a lot of tools to help them do their jobs.
That was it for staffing. We're now on to the unhoused population and creek cleanups. I don't know if we wanted Bob or Nick, because it is a team effort between police and public works.
It is without a doubt a team effort. Just a couple of examples on the picture on the right was a before picture, and the picture on the left is an after picture. With these creek cleanups, it's a long drawn out process to be sure. The law requires us a 72-hour notification. We usually go above and beyond that and give them 2 or 3 notifications that we're going to clean up their camp. And then with every engagement we're engaging them with, we're offering them services to find places to shelter or find things they may need to acquire to become housed. But eventually there are a few that we do have to go in and clean up. And even on the cleanup days, it's usually Public Works, the police department, and then we bring our partnerships of the Salvation Army, TEMA, mental health. Almost every cleanup I've been to myself, I've always seen Salvation Army, and they're usually feeding the people as we're cleaning up. We get a lot of voluntary compliance. There are a few that don't want to cooperate, and once we explain things to them, we really try and do it in a peaceful manner. And so far, we've been very successful in that with all the services we're offering. But I think I know I talked to Matt. Some of the things we brought up out of the creek, the last one I think I was the most surprised about was a 3-seat love seat that made its way down into the creek bed. So it's interesting. And we had one gentleman who's very creative, but was burrowing into the banks of the creek bed. So that was creative in itself. He was very energetic. I even offered to fill it in at one point, I think, but we decided it was right next to the bridge. We'd do it professionally. I think we should probably hire that guy, Nick, because he's pretty ingenious. But it's definitely a collaborative effort. I can't think of how much tonnage we pulled out of the creek in debris and things left behind. And the usual process is we offer them and we notify them that we're going to clean up this area, and then take what you want and what you don't, we pick up. So items left behind are what we discard, nothing that they say is theirs. We give them ample opportunity. Matter of fact, 2M will help them carry stuff out of the creek bed that they say, well, I want to keep this. So it's a really heart endeavor to try and really assist them out of the creek bed or wherever they may be unlawfully camping.
And we are keeping track on how much we're removing from these encampments. So that would be a really easy metric to track.
And how often does a creek cleanup occur? Is it a couple times a year, one time? Once?
It's a weekly process.
It's a weekly process.
It is a weekly process where we're identifying locations and contacting them. And like I said, currently CAT is our primary focus, our community action team. Our team will supplement that or actually take it over. So it's almost a weekly endeavor. We're identifying different camp locations. We recently had Caltrans clear out the underpasses on 101 and all those subjects that they moved away from the freeway have found a home in our city now. So we're engaging with them. And of course, the first step is always offering them services and seeing how we can assist them. And if they camp someplace they're not allowed to, then we have to address that.
And there's obviously several places that are sort of chronic areas where you're having to clean up, like the creek is one.
Yeah,
it's a weekly thing, but there's other places as well that are.
Absolutely. There's probably 4 or 5 different places where I know without a doubt every week we're going to be down. I liken it to prime real estate. If you clean one individual's camp out, it is a good location, so somebody else will take advantage of that and move into it.
All right, thank you.
Nick, I'll have you take the vegetation management and what we've been doing in the creeks to just help clean them up and help this.
Sure, and this really is related to the previous slide as well, because the creek has a very attractive place, you know, and a pleasant place. I mean, actually, if you haven't been down there since we really did some vegetation management, it's, you know, when the creek is flowing, it's just really beautiful down there. And so last fall, we had our partners or vendors come in and really clear a lot of the vegetation between El Camino and Lewis Bridge. And here, these photos, you can see kind of the, you know, what that got us, and really cleared it up, lifted up the trees for sight lines. You can see across the creek to, you know, the former City Hall building and everything else. This upcoming year, we plan on tackling that next section. So from Lewis Bridge down back behind the junior high. And so that'll be one of those areas we have been having some issues as of recent, but this is ongoing. It's, you know, city staff often will come in here and do some work. We are limited on when we can be in the creek, just because if we can be in there at certain times of the year, but we need to hire biologists for nesting bird surveys and things like that. So there's a sweet spot in the year that we do that work, so we don't have to incur those additional costs.
So Nick, do you have, so it sounds like the permits you need from all of the, you know, Fish and Wildlife and all those agencies are ongoing permits. So you outside of the limited, you know, the times of the year you can't do it, you're able to do this year after year?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a permit that it's a vegetation management permit that we have with Fish and Wildlife.
Excellent. Thank you.
We committed to training and educating staff and community members on compassionate interactions with our underrepresented residents. This is building on some training that we had from County Behavioral Health and some of that. TEMA has been a great resource. If you go down to the front lobby, there's a lot of brochures and information about help that's available. We do have a Atascadero community resources brochure that was put together by the police department. We had a wonderful training that was put together by Ryan Betts from Nick's shop and Lisa Cava from mine, along with Larice from Recreation and other participants on kind of a question answered on how do you interact with somebody that is experiencing, you know, homelessness, and how do you, what can the police do? What can't the police do? How do we help? All of those situations. We see this as the first of a series. And Ryan Betts has gamely volunteered to keep the conversations going and the safety with the help of the safety committee. So that's a fantastic training and opportunity that we have there. Bob, you want to talk about our team again? This was a recurring theme in the actions.
Yeah.
And don't feel like we have to keep talking about the same thing over and over. It's okay.
No,
Okay.
I am excited about the art team, and we're excited about these two positions we're hiring coming up, because that actually brings us to staffing levels to allow us to put the art team in place. So I'm really eyeing that, because I don't want to short staff our normal patrol functions to create a new position. But we're looking forward to that. And actually on the left is one of our team members, a great asset, a great resource. And it's just, they're out there, like I said, almost every day. And it's amazing that the productive encounters they have. They're really jazzed when they encounter someone who actually willingly and actively wants to accept their assistance. So it's good to see.
And Chief, do you have any sense of I know oftentimes there's a relationship that has to be built before someone who is unhoused is ready to trust and move forward in finding services. and finding a pathway out of homelessness. Do you have any sense of how many contacts per person that might take, or the kind of range?
Actually, most studies have revealed it's between 16 and 23 separate contacts before someone actually accepts the assistance. And a lot of it is what we looked at when I first got here was our relationships with the unhoused wasn't the best because we were trying to use the same person to offer assistance and kind of like be the hammer to move them on. And when you're moving somebody along one day and trying to offer them assistance the next, it's kind of counterintuitive. So that was really what brought to fruition the concept of having a separate entity reaching out to the community and providing them resources, and somebody else can deal with the trespass issues and things of that nature.
Great, thank you.
Chief, I know you've touched on this already, but I do want to talk briefly about the work that we're trying to do with ECHO on outreach, and just very briefly.
Yeah, part of the D20 money was set aside for contract services, and ECHO has an outreach team that is already embedded in our community. And so we're exploring the concept of partnering with them and putting that D20 resource money towards their endeavors, and to be a true partnership. Really trying to keep it local since they know our local community, especially on our unhoused population. And they've already established that trust section. And then we would, what we found out in our discussion was they have, they can't go contact these individuals without two. And if we have one of their members and one of our members, that's two. They can't transport without two. Well, part of our D20 money was to provide a vehicle. And if we drive and they come with us and we transport the individual, that's two. So it's really just the simplicity of realizing what everybody's needs were and restrictions were and bringing those together. And of course, like I said, TIMA is just an unbelievable resource, and Salvation Army's really stepped up to the plate recently. So those are the three main entities we're partnering with right now, and it seems to be a really good relationship.
We committed to supporting regional combined approach related to the unhoused population. You will hear next week from Councilmember Funk about the San Luis Obispo countywide strategic plan to address homelessness. This will be going to the Board of Supervisors, I believe, next Tuesday, and then we'll come here. So we're moving forward or talking about that. Nick, can you tell us about our orange bag program?
Sure. We've got a couple of these stations along the creek. This one is near the new pedestrian, or I guess it's not so new anymore, the pedestrian bridge near Centennial Plaza. But it's basically an orange bag dispersion, or we stock orange bags in there, encourage folks that are unhoused to use those bags and pick up trash that might be around their areas and place them back at that base of that pole, and we'll come pick it up and take it out to the yard and dispose of it. So it's been a little bit mixed results so far. When it was rainy, so a little more of the orange bags maybe being used for shelter, but it is, I think we strategizing on ways we can maybe get the outreach out there a little bit better and get the word out of how this program is to be used through the homelessness.
Bill, very briefly, do you want to tell us about strategies for ongoing areas of public concern and basically how we're looking at design of spaces so that the entire community can enjoy a space?
Absolutely. And that's a key focal point when we look at any of these public spaces, especially as now we get into the refined design of the downtown infrastructure enhancement plan. But as an example here, looking at these benches here where we'd love to have seating. In fact, now it's being enjoyed by all kinds of different groups in Centennial Plaza. But we simply added, for example, these extra bars in these benches to prevent long-term sleeping on these benches. People can still enjoy them and people can still enjoy the plaza. But really looking at these details about how we can keep it inviting for everyone, make it available for everyone, but also, discourage, something that might be a problem for someone staying for a prolonged period of time or other things that might happen along these ways. So it's a kind of a creative strategy, just not creating hiding spaces, not creating spaces that might have security issues, and not creating spaces that can become an attractive nuisance, but instead creating a space that we can all of us enjoy.
Chief, you want to talk to us about some of the tools, technology tools you're going to use?
I sure will. When I first got the position here, I was really exploring the homeless issue, and there's a lot of programs out there to track unhoused populations that cost a lot of money. And then in our partnership with TEMA, I found out that lo and behold, San Luis Obispo County has a system. It's just not quite utilized, and it's called the Homeless Management Information System. We now have access to it. Our police officers are just now starting to get trained on it. So we can basically input data into the system and retrieve data to find out that John was in San Luis Obispo last week, and he's scheduled to have an appointment with an intake officer tomorrow, but John's now up in Atascadero. So how do we get John back to San Luis Obispo for his intake appointment? Things of that nature. So it's a continuum of care program is what it is. And we have one officer currently trained on it. HIMS is receptive. Matter of fact, it's always been intended to be in the hands of law enforcement as well. It's just that they didn't have the staff to oversee that. And you imagine, 30 plus cops in every city suddenly joining onto the program. We're going to be inputting a lot of data, but now they're getting more up to staff. So they're kind of loosening the reins on it. And we're really excited about the potential of being able to walk up to an unhoused person and say, hey, what's your name? And then as we start inputting, we find out that they have services, and it's just making sure they can get to their appointments, and they are recalling their appointments. So it's an interesting program, and it's absolutely free to our agency, which I really enjoy, and I'm sure Jerry enjoys even more.
And I'd also add that then from the strategic perspective, being able to leverage that data, have a more complete picture of that, to have a better understanding of how people flow in and out of incarceration into homelessness, and how we can try to interrupt that process. But to get the strategic picture of who has what kinds of needs where, so that countywide over time we can better plan for and better manage the services, so that we can move people out of homelessness faster.
And that ties right into the next slide, which was look for opportunities and grants to provide resources and opportunities to support our underrepresented residents. The key really is regionalism. There are a lot of dollars that are coming down towards this, that strategic plan, and working together as a county. This isn't an Atascadero problem or a Paso Robles problem. This is a much larger problem, and working together towards that. Obviously, we continue to look for grants internally too, and the grant writer will help, but I think the majority of the funding will come towards those regional solutions that we're all hoping for. The next area that we're talking about is community engagement services. Our team we won't talk about anymore, but very briefly, public safety outreach events.
Well, our slides up there, and as well as fire departments, Coffee with the Cop is back, and COVID is over. We're looking at more opportunities like canine demonstrations and things of that nature to get involved in. We just had a meeting with Lighthouse today about doing their program again this year. That's going to be live again this year. So as things open up, we're always looking for those opportunities to engage our community and let them know about the police department, not just when we're behind you.
Luke, you want to tell us what we're doing to ensure messaging is accessible and consistent?
I think Chief Miranda had something to say.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
That's all good. This year is a big year for the fire department, 100-year anniversary, as you already know. So our public outreach work group has been working diligently to make sure that we have a ton of stuff to do and have a lot of contact with the public. One of the big events coming up is our open house, which is coming up on May 7th. We're going to have fire demonstrations, safety demonstrations, old school, old fashioned fire muster games like bucket brigades and all kinds of different fun things for kids and families to enjoy. We're gonna have a bunch of vendors, some 100-year memorabilia for the public to be able to enjoy and buy. We're gonna have food. Food's always good. That should bring people, and all kinds of good stuff. So that's one of the big things. We're also bringing back our Fireman's Ball at the end of this year. We'll be having our Fireman's Ball. And then we're doing a very large past employee and current employee event for Colony Days. So we're making sure that all of our past fire department employees get the opportunity to march with us and make a big to-do of it, and wear and purchase or be given a commemorative badge and commemorative belt buckle and commemorative coin. So there's all kinds of good stuff that's folding into it. Public outreach people have been pretty much just killing it. They've been doing a lot of good stuff. So that's it.
And that May 7th event promises to be great. The community is not going to miss it. So, okay, Luke.
Like I mentioned earlier, our new website and social media technician, Amanda Luther, is transitioning into her new role now, and she'll be focusing primarily on website content and our social media presence. And now we have dedicated staff to be able to focus on our consistency across all our platforms. The worst thing is to go and search for a recreation application, bring it in, and oh, I'm sorry, that was from 2010. You need this new one. That is not consistent. So we're going to go through our old files on the web server, clean those up, work with each department, and get a consistent message across all platforms. And one of our primary goals with a new website is full ADA compliance. Our new website just doesn't have the capacity to bring up to current ADA standards. Our new website will be fully ADA compliant, which will bring the full website experience to all visitors.
Matt, you want to tell us about one of the exciting public engagement programs we recently completed?
Yeah, a really awesome thing that we're able to do this last year. It was 3 years in the making. Our fuel management work group, along with our battalion chief of community risk reduction, Chief Van Son, were able to put together a program that was really instituted or kind of thought up from one of our fire captains while he was attending Cal Poly, getting his degree in fuel management. And that was to go out to private residences and offer a free consultation, look at all the fuels and the topography around their residence, and give them a solid assessment of some of the things that they can do to make their home stand and stay, a safe home during some type of wildfire event. So they were able to go out and do 77 consultations. This was grant funded. We look forward to having it grant funded or even permanently funded again, because it was a great opportunity and the residents absolutely loved the one-on-one time that they got to have with fire personnel and the wisdom that they were able to impart.
And do we have any idea how many of those homes, the extent to which those recommendations were implemented?
We do not have a metric for that yet, but we do know that quite a few of them end up signing up for our chipping program. So they pretty much took immediate action and started clearing some either brush or branches or so on and so forth, and then turned around and enrolled in our other free program, which was a chipping program.
We said that we would continue online and in-person engagement and decision-making discussions. Here we are tonight with our hybrid meeting, allowing people both online and in person. Matt, this one's you again.
This one's me again, and the last one for tonight, at least I think. When Chief Van Son came on board, our inspection program needed a lot of love. So he gave it that love. He pretty much started from the ground and built a tablet-based inspection program that links to fire code and building codes, and made it more seamless for the engine companies to do, but also for him to be able to go out and perform his duties out in the field. So since we rolled it out, or he rolled it out in June of last year, all the way to current date, we've been able to get 165 business inspections done. That includes all of our mandatory state and local standard buildings, which is 131 apartments, 6 hotels, 7 care facilities, 7 schools, and then 14 additional businesses. So this is a combined effort with every single person on the fire department. And it will be in a repeat cycle where we now have the template to continue to do all these and remain state compliant for years to come.
The last priority area and the shortest, I promise, is quality of life. Probably the most important, right? All of these deal with quality of life, but the definition of quality of life is we are embracing our warm, friendly atmosphere and building on our sense of community by providing attractions, open spaces, outdoor interactions, and a variety of things to do for all. We really liked the Atascadero, where everybody knows your name and is willing to lend a hand. Again, things to do. One of the things that we have committed to do that we haven't had a lot of discussion about, COVID has kind of put this off a little bit, is to discuss the long-term capital needs of the zoo and the viability of continuing with AZA accreditation. We have a lot of exhibits that are reaching the end of their useful life. The expectation of AZA, which is the American Aquarium and Zoo Association, which is our accreditation body, they're looking more and more for exhibits that, well, I call them more Disneyland-esque. They're looking for exhibits that make the visitor feel like the animal has a good home, not just caring about whether the animal has a good home type of thing. So a lot of those exhibits that you see, you know, where there's multiple tigers in a big area, those tigers aren't all actually living together. They actually have smaller spaces. They're kept separate. Tigers are solitary animals. But the visitor has that impression that, oh, look at all of these tigers are together because we like to be together. And so, yeah, that's it. That's, yeah, there's a lot of things if you go to AZA conferences that you hear a lot of that. Those are very expensive. And we really need to figure out, you know, what is our future as a zoo? There's thousands of zoos across the nation that are not accredited. Do we want to become one of those? The AZA is truly the highest bar. That is what San Diego does. That will be a big conversation we have. In the meantime, we are fundraising. We're fundraising for the lemur exhibit and to replace the lemur exhibit. There's also a private fundraising effort led by some members of our community for a new sloth exhibit. We just got our new Thelma Vetter Red Panda exhibit. So we are making progress. It's just going to be a question of, can we make progress at the speed that AZA wants? So,
does the AZA or other organizations offer financial assistance or in terms of grants or anything like that that could help with this?
They do not.
They don't.
A lot of the big zoos, you know, you'll go to San Diego Zoo and you'll see, you know, Africa brought to you by Chevron or
Oh, I see.
something
Okay.
along those
So
lines.
you get a big sponsor then.
They have big giant sponsors. They can donate millions. The work these zoos do is really incredible. It's not about necessarily entertaining the public as much as educating and really preserving these animals for the future and reintroducing them back. So interesting stuff. Begin to address key deferred maintenance issues in parks and public spaces. Nick.
Yes, so we've actually been making some headway on some of these deferred maintenance issues. Lake Park, we did a ton of tree trimming that was way overdue. It removed a lot of potential hazards. We're also planning some improvements to replace the old pier here. We actually had to close it down because some of the members, the structural members on there were rotting out. And so I'm really excited about what that might be going ahead. And also the benches and some sidewalk, cracks and everything else and picnic tables and those things. So we'll be getting after a lot of those items as well this upcoming year.
The next area is being welcoming and inclusive. Nick.
So one of the D20 measures was also the algae at the lake. And so we've been doing a lot of pond dye and probiotics in the last couple of years, and that's really worked well to keep the algae at bay. The aeration system has really helped out that Friends of the Lake have sponsored. And then also we recently, if you see out in the lake, a bobber looking thing, looks like, I don't know, like a small cooler, round cooler maybe, but it's shaped like a bobber and painted like a bobber. That's actually a monitoring station. So we had our lake a survey done, bathymetric survey they call it, and 3 weeks ago by one of our vendors. And so we got a good contour of the lake. We kind of know how much at each elevation, how much water is in there, so we can better accurately put the right amount of pond dye and probiotics in there. But also like is superimposed, it's a web-based program, superimposed with temperatures, wind direction, rainfall and all those things. So you can see the lake rise and, from rainfall or, dissolved oxygen and a lot of other things there. So this is the one I told Rochelle I had a little surprise for her. So
That's it.
sorry, I actually caught that last year in the lake.
Yeah. Laura, you want to take this one?
Sure, a lot of quality of life and making sure our city is welcoming and inclusive is really working with our community partners to continue the good works that happen in the city. The pickleball courts opened in November, and so those are going strong. They are actively used every single day. We have another Lake Fest event coming up with our partnership with Friends of the Lake. We continue to work with and partner with Parents for Joy, with the Joy Playground, and future opportunities that they've looked at, the potential for a splash pad next door to where Joy Playground is. So we just continue to do these partnerships. We have an ongoing partnership with Alps and just really all of our community partners that are out there are volunteers. Luke mentioned the program that we have now, the litter removal program. So, just really making sure we're doing things so that volunteers can continue to be active. Shine, who comes into town often and helps to do the creek cleanups. And so, yeah, all of those types of events, just continuing to do that and work with that so that we show that we do have that diversity and that inclusion and that we are beautifying our community.
Is Earthshine having another event in April? I thought they were.
They are April 30th.
Okay, thank you.
So I'll talk about it at next council meeting, but look on their website. It's probably also on our website, and we can get that. And Luke, Laura stole your thunder, but you can still talk about your litter program.
I'll go ahead and talk about it now, not earlier. Toward the end of enabling and empowering the public to help keep our community clean, staff developed an app that allows individuals, groups to register to volunteer to clean up areas of town. And so using this platform, I'm not sure how many have actually used it yet, but it is available. With this platform, we'll be able to expand the use of it to many types of volunteer efforts the city wants to help encourage throughout town.
So when you say app, is that something someone goes on to the app store on their phone, or do we mean they go to the city website and they sign up? How does somebody do that right now?
So there's a link. If you go to Living Here Parks and Facilities, there's a link on there for the litter removal program. And from there, they'll get this this form. They can click on an area of town, they can fill the form out, and it'll email staff. They'll get a series of documents to fill out with further steps to engage in that volunteer opportunity. So it's not a separate app, it's just a web application.
And, and the opportunity, the city will help, pick up the trash and provide different resources to help with those efforts. So that's fantastic. We also had a section called Supporting Families. Encourage regional organizations that bring to attention to childcare needs. Laura, anything you want to say on that one?
Sure, Mayor, I might steal your thunder here too. Sorry, I'm stealing everybody's thunder. But Councilmember Darris is now our new representative on CAPSLO. So he will be the North County representative on that, which is, you can see it up there, Community Action Partnership with San Luis Obispo, and they focus on a lot of things, but one of the big things they focus on is daycare and providing daycare throughout the county. So he'll be our representative there. Then there's also the We Are the Care initiative that's through First Five, and Councilmember Mayor Pro Tem Newsom is a liaison to that as well. So she is also a liaison for daycare. And daycare opportunities across the county and especially here in North County. So we do have 2 council members who will now be actively working with regional organizations to bring that attention and to see what is out there and can be done here in our county to make that available to families.
We also committed to continuing ongoing successful partnerships with organizations such as Link and Echo and the school district. You guys know about those. They're very close to those organizations and talk a lot. We talked about broadband a little bit earlier tonight, so I won't go into that. We also talked about some of the availability of mental health resources that we have here. And so I'll skip to continue to implement affordable housing policies. Bill?
Yes, and we plan to come to City Council soon to discuss options on implementing a housing element policy. A number of things we'll be looking at, which would include programs where we can look at possibly a fee program, possibly incentives to develop affordable housing, possibly even keeping our interim affordable housing ordinance that we have. We're going to lay out a whole series of different options and pros and cons, and we'll have our consultant that we've been working with as well discuss the Nexus study results that they've been working on. So we're working on that and getting pretty close to being ready to share some additional information for this program and have some great discussion with council and the community.
And the last one is the one with a big check mark, and that is exploring community choice energy, which we did in February. We have a few more steps to fully implement, but we're on our way. And with that, we went through every single action. Thank you for your patience. Certainly, there's a lot we didn't talk about that we're doing towards those, but we gave you a flavor of that. Staff would be happy to answer any questions or hear any comments from council or the public.
Thank you for that. I think it was very valuable. As council, we know what's going on, but to see it all together is very helpful, especially when one of us suddenly gets this wild idea like, ooh, how about we go do this? And we want to put more on your plate. Well, you have 100 and something things currently on your plate just in this 2-year cycle. And so it's a good reminder to us. It's nice to see the progress. But it equally is important for you and the public to see what is being done. And we truly want to thank you because it is your willingness to invest in our community with the passing of D20 that we are able to do a lot of this. And you'll be seeing things in the mail and having a better understanding of how those funds are being used. But really, we thank you. These things couldn't be done without your support. And so can't say enough about that. I think we've kind of asked our questions along the way. So unless there's a burning question from council, I'll go out to the public. Is there? I think we're good. So our our whopping public members here. Anybody, please, even if you weren't planning to talk, maybe raise your hand and say something, ask a question, feel free, raise your hand there in the webinar. If you're on the phone, *9. And I think we've lost our in-person audience. Anyone on the phone, Luke? Oh, come on. I'm going to have to call out you folks on the webinar. Anyone? No? All right. Well, I'll go ahead and close public comment and bring it back. I know that you're wanting some direction now on sort of measurement. And so would you like to start with what some of your ideas are in that so that we can then provide that feedback?
Yeah, let me just talk a little bit and make sure that we're on the right page. This came up specifically with Measure D20 funds and the importance of being extremely transparent on not only what did we spend those monies on, but council said that they want some way to tell, are we being successful in achieving those goals with those metrics? So this was what we planned on spending the D20 funds on for the next 2 years, for 21 and 20 through 23. When we did the D20 outreach, we actually asked those study groups or those community groups, what does success look like? Because we wanted to make sure that we understood in every way. We asked a lot of the questions a lot of different ways, but this was an important one. If the city spent the D20 funds perfectly, what would success look like as part of the development of Measure D20? And part of the reason we asked this is so that we knew what should we be measuring and what should we be trying to attain. This is the word cloud of the answers, that we received: staffing, police, downtown, fire, community, safe, people, infrastructure, facilities. A lot of these are things that you just heard us say over and over again tonight as part of the action plan. But don't give a lot of detail on what success is, other than we want, a more vibrant downtown. We want an adequate police staffing and those types of things. We asked them also, how should the city measure success? Police, equipment, response, retention, surveys, metrics. So this is kind of the basis for, okay, we need to be tracking information, and so we can report on what is success. But what metrics could we track that would show success? Or just as importantly, where aren't we being as successful? And we should discontinue that and move our funds somewhere else. And then as we pick metrics, are there other factors that would unduly influence the metrics? So if you said we want crime statistics to go down, that could be done a number of ways. If we arrest fewer people or take fewer crime reports, that could, cause crime statistics to go down, or vice versa. If the feds change the way that you have to report, and now every one incident is now 3, your crime statistics are going to go up. So crime statistics may not be the best metric, because you can get good results from a metric standpoint showing, yay, crime's going down, but that wasn't really increasing the feeling of safety that we want as a community, and vice versa. How do you track some things that are kind of soft, right? I want to feel safe. How do you track that? There is no one measure that you do that. And then how much are we willing to invest in tracking data? As we're tracking data, we're not, we're investing resources in tracking the data, possibly, that are resources that we could be using to actually produce results. Where's that balance? And are there other ways to measure and report progress? Staff has thought of some metrics, particularly for the D20 stuff. I do have the spreadsheet of the D20 stuff that I could bring up. But I'm really looking for additional guidance from the council on, what types of things you guys want to see. And And I'm not sure the best way to go about getting that information. And if you guys want to dive in or you want to hear from probably Bob, I'd have Bob kick it off because a lot of the things that we're spending the D20 funds on are police, both equipment, infrastructure, and personnel.
I would say based on, the information we got from the public of this is what success looks like for us, you've taken a good look at this and you have a sense in your own department of how you might be able to show that number. So if you could share that with us, and then that will help us to launch with, questions or clarification or ideas we might have.
I guess that's me now, huh?
Yes.
All right. Real quick, thinking about how to measure matrix, city manager kind of alluded to the fact that, arrests and crime are kind of floating numbers, especially with the implementation of cybers in California, where literally one incident in the past has now become 3 or 4 or 5. So our crime statistics, as far as types of crimes, are going to go up in some areas just because of that reporting database. But for things of adding more officers, it's interesting. More officers you add, the more crime appears to go up because they're out doing more. So you have more arrests and things of that nature. So that's a really, as Rochelle said, a soft number to really grasp. But some of the concepts we were talking about in the police department, for example, like staffing, is the percentage of times we're above minimum staffing on a shift. That's a metrics we can grab and say, in the past we had 3 people on duty and now we have 4 or 5 on duty. Or how many citizen contacts in a positive manner are we making, where we're just getting out and foot patrolling an area, things of that nature. We can check on that. And that's a good number to grab. How many reports an individual officer takes compared to last year? If we have more officers sharing the load, then the workload on any one individual officer has a potential of going down because there's more to share the load with. Time spent writing reports, that's a big one. As an example, we had a crime in which our detective sergeant entered the cybers and NIBRs information, and it literally took her 2 hours to just enter the data the federal government required us to enter on one case. That's something we can measure with the new RMS system we're putting in. What's the average time to complete a report? How many times is the information accepted as opposed to before? Those are metrics we can grab with a new system to see, is there an improvement from the old system, things like that. Obviously, with the radio and the repeater, are we able to clearly understand our officers and firefighters in an area where without that repeater last year we couldn't hear them? The Templeton repeater is absolutely phenomenal in being able to talk on the north side of town, whereas before it was, hold the radio in the air, lift your left foot, and hopefully cant your head in the right angle, and you could hear. And now that repeater's online for both fire and police. It's greatly enhanced our radio communication. Those are metrics we can grab pretty easily, and I think will be a true assessment of what we're looking to track. Did the D20 money actually help our agencies?
To me, right off the bat, though, what I want to make sure is that you don't spend extra time gathering data just to report data to us. Because, I hate to see staff. I was part of a huge bureaucracy known as the military, and we wasted a lot of time just gathering data because somebody higher up, thought it was need to have. And also, not that any of you would do this, but there's just a tendency, to gather good data in any organization, in any department, section, branch, division, whatever you want to call it. And I do want to make sure, though, that, whatever data we ask for here is not hard to come by and does not impose an additional burden on you to gather that data. And so we want to use those things like that you said are easy to grab. And that's the key thing. But for me also, I would defer to the city manager and to you as department heads to come to us with, hey, these are some measurements we think would be effective in determining how well our D20 funding is being utilized. And if we, for some reason, find that, that's incomplete, or we, want something different, we could talk about that, but I don't feel like we should be going, well, I want to see specifically how many, car thefts happened every month. I mean, that might be nice to know, but if you don't think that's a valuable number, I don't want to task you with gathering it. There's a lot of data I think would be very interesting. I love data. A lot of data I think would be interesting out of fire department or public works, but we pay the city manager a lot of money to run this city, and she does a good job at it. And I trust her judgment to come up with a reasonable set of reporting metrics. And, working with all of you as department heads, and then, show that to us. And if we somehow think it's inadequate, we can speak up then.
Sounds good to me.
I would have to say, I agree with that. We could go down the line and spend another hour here talking about metrics. I don't know how incredibly useful that is, but I would ask any of my colleagues if there's something where you really want to hone in on something as some direction and bounce it off of council, then please do that. But I would agree with my colleague.
Yeah,
Councilmember Funk.
I would concur in that and offer a couple of additional thoughts. One is that we could get really carried away with detailed metrics on each line item of this thing and get lost in the weeds. So I think a plan that might work is to grab some measurable metrics that look to the overall objectives and sort of the health of the community, the health of the workforce. So we're doing a lot of training and recruiting and hiring and supporting of staff. That should show up in measurable metrics with regard to employee recruitment and retention. And I would think that that kind of thing that this is not any one line, this is several different line items, but it says the health of what we're doing should show up in a workforce that is stable, that is happy enough that they're going to stay around. And we don't have to do surveys or other things. We can look at how people are voting with their feet. I'd also encourage us in some of these areas as we develop, for instance, in the outreach contacts that PD is doing, if there is a way to capture the kinds of success stories that you just did, the extent to which these contacts are resulting in people getting out of homelessness or getting, or in persons, to the extent to which we're working with mentally ill persons, whether they are housed or unhoused, the extent to which we are able to reduce the number of contacts per person or some kind of metric that helps us understand whether we're focusing on some of those problem areas in ways that are yielding results and help people understand that.
Yeah, I will concur, obviously, with everybody saying here. Clearly, everybody, your departments, you have data and areas that you look at to measure your successes and how things are going throughout the year. We don't know what those are. It'd be best for you guys to then present that data and we can show how things are either progressing or not. And we can take appropriate action from that point. But I think you guys are best suited to tell us how best to see the measurement of success.
So I think the overall bottom line is we trust you and we appreciate you very much. So thank you for all the work that you are doing, the commitment and dedication you have to, I can't even say your job. I mean, really to your city. Most of you live here, but even if you don't, this is still your city. And so thank you from the bottom of our hearts, really, for what you do for your residents and for all of us to make this a wonderful place to live and ideally be working more, right, Lorelei? Right. Anything you need further from us, Rochelle?
No, that helps tremendously. It gives me a baseline of what the council is expecting, and we will develop those metrics and get them to you. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you. All right. We are moving on to council announcements and committee reports, and I will just go from my right to my left. So start with Councilmember Funk.
Okay, thank you. We've got a meeting of the Design Review Committee this Thursday with one item on a residential fence. And then on the Homeless Services Oversight Council, I'll be presenting on that next meeting. But we'll also be presenting jointly with Joe Deslonick from county staff and Wade Horton, the county executive, to the County Board of Supervisors on April 19th. I just had a meeting yesterday of the Homeless Services Oversight Council Executive Committee. And we were tracking a couple of things, including an opportunity that potentially to use a property on the Department of Social Services site it's near 40 Prado, but on High Guerra Street in the city of San Luis Obispo. There's interest in using that parking, sort of surplus parking area, dirt area, potentially for a tiny home village. That's something that Hopes Village is encouraging. And there also might be other options on organizations involved in that work.
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem Newsom and myself did have a meeting with of the City Schools Committee over at the school district office, where we ended up discussing issues of mutual concern and nothing really to report. It's not an action committee where actions are decided on. It's a matter of keeping each other informed of areas of mutual interest. But that went well. Tomorrow I attend the monthly meeting of the Integrated Waste Management Authority. The most significant issue will be that the Joint Powers Agreement amendment that was adopted and sent out may require some further amendment. It appears increasingly likely that we will have at least one city that will not vote to ratify the JPA amendment as currently drafted. And it ultimately does require unanimous ratification by all 7 cities in the county. So we will be having a lengthy discussion, I'm sure, about how making possible further amendments to try to get to a point where unanimity could be achieved.
I don't really have much to report other than to say I'm happy to join the CAPSLO team. Looking forward to working with them and getting to know that organization much better and being a part of that. So that's all I have.
You and Laura both stole my thunder. It's gonna be, but no, I do want to thank Councilmember Darrows. We share a seat with Paso, and so we trade back and forth. And that was actually halted a little bit during COVID, but they came to us and said, "Hey, Atascadero's turn." And I asked Councilmember Darrows, and he gladly stepped up to the plate for that. So CAPSLO is a very large organization. They have a 15-member board. 5 are public officials. So Councilmember Darrows will be one of those, and they really look at addressing like the underlying causes of poverty and how to help low-income individuals access the available resources to support themselves. So thank you very much for your willingness to serve on that. We had a SILCOG meeting last Wednesday, and so there are some grants available. As I think it was our director, DeBar, said that sometimes we're not always eligible because of the disadvantaged communities piece. So, I mean, gratefully, we're not a disadvantaged community, but when we're applying for grants, that works against us. We do have a community betterment grant that is now available. There's about $7 million, plus or minus 15% of that eligibility is related to disadvantaged communities. So the highest we can get is 85%, but we are certainly that really the key is if it can be used for construction. And so we've really got a viable project here. So we'll see where that goes. And I'm curious, maybe address another time, but curious if we're going to be going for the ATP cycle 6. I know that's something we had worked for last time, but we'll see how that goes. A quick answer on that one.
We've kind of struck out the last few cycles on that, and that one is heavy, very competitive, and heavy on the disadvantaged community status. So, I mean, if it's something the council thinks we should go after, we sure can.
I
but-
trust you on that. So
Okay.
I was just asking there. Some good news, our local transportation funds, LTF, is increasing about 38%. So that's nice because we are really the only community that puts that towards roads. We have other funding that we get for transit because LTF first has to go to transit, but we're able to use a significant portion of that for our roads. So that is really good news. The current estimate is about 2.1 million. So good news. And then there's a transportation efficiency analysis. So kind of looking at upcoming projects that would be land use necessitated. There were, I think, 35 land use necessitated. Del Rio 101 made that list as the only Atascadero project that does. What that means, we don't quite know. Are we, eligible for REAP 2.0? Still looking at what that could do for us. But anyway, that's sitting out there. We've got our mayor's meeting this Friday, and I will be seeing Councilmember Funk, who will be presenting the HSOC, or the countywide homelessness plan. So looking forward to that. And with that, I will ask if there are any individual determinations. Seeing none, we will adjourn our regular meeting and go to closed session. And I will ask our city attorney to note what the item is.
Yes, this is a conference with real property negotiators. It's authorized by Government Code Section 54956.8. The real property is located at 5970 El Camino Real. The APN number is in the agenda. The agency negotiator is your city manager. Negotiating parties is Fred F. Flume, Revocable Trust. The subject of negotiations are purchase price and/or terms of payment.
Thank you. And I will go ahead and open up public comment. If there's any members of the public wishing to speak, you can go ahead and raise your hand in the webinar or *9 on the phone. Seeing none, we'll go ahead and close public comment and we will go into closed session, and we will have our city attorney report out at the next meeting on whether there is any reportable action. Good night, all.